Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with one or more creators, authors, illustrators, publishers, or other movers and shakers in games, TV, books, movies, or other areas of the Geekverse. Regular guests include Douglas A. Burton, the author of Faraway Bird, a multi-award-winning historical fiction novel of the Byzantine Empress Theodora. He's also the author of The Hero and Labyrinth, an alternative story structure to the hero's journey that often occurs in stories with feminine heroes. That structural framework frequently comes up in our analysis of story. Brianna De Silva, she's the director and co-writer of The Cultists, a Lovecraftian comedy mockumentary-style web show here on YouTube, and the author of The City of Reckoning, an epic fantasy novel of political intrigue, the ethics of war, and young love. Cameron Pasha is a screenwriter, director, novelist, and was a writer and producer on the series Kings, a producer on NBC's Bionic Woman, and a co-producer and writer for Sleeper Cell. He's also written for the CW series Nikita and Roswell, New Mexico. He's been breaking news from inside Lucasfilm, Disney, and Hollywood. His analysis and commentary have become very popular on YouTube. We regularly meet to discuss and analyze stories, and when we do, we dive into graduate-level seminars on story structure and writing. Come on in and let's go deep. And when I say we're going deep, I mean you'd better bring your hard suit. Other guests have included Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels Once Upon a Unicorn, the creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and the author of Star Wars: A Pirate's Price, the book that explains why the Millennium Falcon is on the planet Batu at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Mark Tassin, the creator of the world of Ataltis, head of Mechanical Muse, former director of the Gen Con Writers Symposium, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. Let's see, who else?
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. Not yet. Maybe soon, though. But I have interviewed Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games, crowdfunder extraordinaire, and publisher of many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. Ryan Colin, sculptor of the world of Revelo, Monster Busts, and the creator of the vast, grim, dark horror RPG. Ajit George, the Dungeons & Dragons author. We talked about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and the development of the Journeys to the Radiant Citadel.
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, the commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne, and the goddess of death.
Well, actually, that interview got rather spicy, so I think I'd better just keep that one to myself. Kate Wilson, a YouTuber, actress, host, and prolific geek guru who's now working to make a new show dedicated to the world of tabletop gaming a reality. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride, because it's time to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and all of geekdom through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger, ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Table Talk. Welcome to the office. Welcome to my home. I'm Heath. I'll be your host this evening. It is so good to see you. It is so good to have everyone here. We're going to be talking about the Star Wars Ahsoka show that just wrapped up on Disney Plus. Kind of in the round. We've talked about it a couple times. We did a show on the first two episodes, and I think the next two episodes, but then there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, we thought, but now the whole thing has concluded, and I've got notes and things to talk about the entire show from, in the round of postmortem, and we've assembled a great team to talk about it tonight. First of all, Retro Nerd Girl. Welcome, Retro.
Hello, everybody.
So we got Retro Nerd Girl here to talk about it. One of the favorites, absolutely, on the show. You've only been on this show once, right? But you're already one of everybody's favorites. Done dinner and a board game with us, but already a complete favorite on the among everyone who watches. So she's here.
Thank you. Thanks.
And
hi,
then
guys.
also, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
Doug Burton is here. Regular on the show. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you.
All right. So we've got our panel here. Retro, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. My name is Retro Nerd Girl, And I do movie reviews on YouTube. And it's basically, I usually pick a nice oldie, a retro movie for us to look at. And I do a really intense deep dive. Some of them have gone on for about 45 minutes. Then I also do live streams. I do live streams on Wednesday mornings. I like to sometimes talk about modern things, so that's my opportunity to do that. And then on Fridays, I do a show that is really basically talking about a retro discussion of some sort, any topic there. And then on Saturdays, I usually do a watch party of a nice retro movie. And the last one we did was The Mummy 1999, which we had so much fun.
All
Awesome.
right. Yes. Her reviews are wonderful.
Oh,
I
thank
love them. Whenever we're looking at movies and things like that, I always look up to see if Retro Nerd Girl has covered a movie already, to see what she has to say about it. And she was even talking about, she does a lot of research for her reviews and to talk about what she wants to talk about. And she was just talking about how the writing and everything of the actual review is some of the most time-consuming parts. I mean, her reviews of movies go deep.
I do. I enjoy going that deep into the movies because I feel like there's not enough channels doing that. So I want to be part of the ones that are doing deep dives on some of these old, really awesome movies. And not only I don't just cover old movies. I cover the ones I truly love. I truly love those movies. So then you get to see why, if there's why I love that movie.
Oh no, James says I'm a little wounded. 1995 isn't retro. The 90s happened 10 years ago. No more. Yes, I know. Isn't that the case? When your favorite movies from childhood are being covered on the retro channel, or when you tune into the Golden Oldies radio channel and you hear your high school songs, it's rough. It's rough.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, it's
James.
amazing. Movies like the Lord of the Rings trilogy are already classics. That was only 20 years ago. It's like, oh my God, those were already back there.
Well, there was an Instagram, like something went. I guess I saw on Instagram or something that was like recently that like when Star Trek Voyager aired, that there was the same amount of time between the original series airing and Voyager airing as there is between Voyager airing and now.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
Take a slingshot around the sun. Slow it
Doug,
down.
do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Douglas Burton, and I'm an author, and I've written a historical fiction book called Faraway Bird, which is about it's an autobiographical, or since not autobiographical, biographical of Byzantine Empress Theodora. And working on this led to a complete reanalysis of story structure, and I questioned the hero's journey since it did not quite work for me in this story. And that led me to write what's called the Hero and Labyrinth, a book that will be coming out in February of next year, which is I'm proposing an alternative archetypal structure to the hero's journey that I call the Hero and Labyrinth, based on my studies of hero-centric stories. A lot of love that went into that book. So and now, of course, I'm writing book 2 to Faraway Bird. So lots going on.
And here it is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got
Nice.
it right here. You can see it actually on my Amazon. You see you purchased this item on October 5th. Well, it showed up. So here it is, Faraway Bird. So we are people who do things in this network. We're not just people who talk about things. We're people who do things. Here is his book. I was talking on the morning grind today that I got 3 fiction books to read. Faraway Bird, that just showed up like yesterday or something like that. The City of Reckoning, which is Brianna's book.
Wow,
We're going to talk about them all here on this channel.
I've
and
got
then
that
also I got Mother of Believers by Cameron.
I got that one too by Cameron.
And when you stick all of this together,
Oh, that's a lot of reading.
this is a massive amount of fiction reading to do.
You got to do your homework.
Right. The people who are here on this channel, we are doers. We're not just people who talk about and criticize and hate things. That is not what we do here. We are doers. We are creators. So these are 3 of the books from the people who are on this channel right now.
Oh, wow.
To read. So we're going to be reviewing all of these books on the channel in the coming weeks and months. So I started reading. I got a bookmark in The City of Reckoning. I started it. So, but that's a chunk to read.
I'm halfway through Mother of Believers.
I'll
I'll get to the finish line. And I did read Faraway Bird already.
And you've gotten through that one. James saying, I took some good notes today between taking notes on Dark Goddess. So James has been reading Dark Goddess. That's Brianna's new movie script.
Okay.
All right. So there's that. This right here. October 17th is going to be the relaunch of Goodnight Sword, my children's story on Indiegogo. Goodnight Sword is obviously a takeoff of Goodnight Moon, the children's classic. So if you have people in your children in your life, kids, nephews, nieces of the right age, friends, whatever, children of friends, whatever, who would be of the right age for Goodnight Sword, but you are in the geek verse and you'd much rather read a fantasy version of this, Goodnight Sword is it. And so we're going to do physical copies starting October 17th. So that's not this Tuesday, but it's the next Tuesday when this will launch. And if you want to know when that happens and also be entered to win a copy of that, get Goodnight Sword right here. Let's see. Actually, I've got it copied right here. Get Goodnight Sword right here. And you can download it when you enter your email address right there. You will get a completely free copy of the PDF, complete free book. So if you enter there, you'll know when it goes live on Indiegogo. Be entered to win a free copy on October 17th. That's when I'll draw, but also you'll get a PDF of it. So if you want to read it tonight, you can read it tonight. Just put your email address in there. You'll be able to read it tonight. I'll also let you know if you like it, then I'll let you know when the hardback goes live. And you can get it starting on October 17th.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. I will also say that just quickly that we are on Instagram.
Oh,
we
wow.
Have Table Talk Conversations. I'll put this link over here. Table Talk on Instagram. Table Talk on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram and you want to start getting some clips of this, some shorts, some reels as they're called on Instagram, come over here and follow us on Instagram. I just started this earlier this week. So we got 19 followers. You can see Retro Nerd Girls there, right here. You can see.
All right.
Yay, I know.
And you can see some of them. They get like 1,000 views over here, 1,000 views over here, 1,200 views over here, 1,300 views right here, 1,000 views there, 1,000 views there. So all of these, we've got reels going out on Instagram. So follow us on Instagram. Look, Doug's talking about something here. Got 2,700 views on Instagram right there. So check out, that's Table Talk Conversations. I posted the link in the description, in the comments. So go over there. We're on Instagram, and we are also on TikTok. So
wow.
Table Talk right over here. Robert says, hello, Retro Nerd Girl and Burton. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Robert.
Awesome. How you doing?
Robert. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. So if you are on TikTok, if you're a TikToker, TikTok, Table Talk.
Oh my goodness. I think we're famous now.
Come on over there. Why can't I?
We made it.
Yeah, we've made it. We've reached the pinnacle.
We are over here on this, but wait a minute. So I look at it. I can look at it over here. For some reason, it's not coming up. We got 138 followers. We have 8,421 likes on TikTok.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
In total. But Doug, when you were talking about potentially the rumor about erasing the sequel trilogy, remember that last time we were talking about that? That TikTok now has 190,000 views.
Really?
Wow.
By far our biggest clip. Doug has 190,000 views on one of those.
Wow.
So that's what people want to talk about on TikTok.
Yeah, it's viral.
That's what people want to talk about on TikTok. All right.
Awesome.
All right. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
Ahsoka. I got notes, but who?
I have notes.
You got notes. Who wants to start?
This was the greatest show ever made. Changed my mind. That's not what I think. Yeah, So I went through and I double checked how I rated each episode, and then I took an average of it, and it's crazy because I gave the first 2 episodes a 3, then third episode a 5, episode 4 a 7, episode 5 a 9. The only reason it's not a 10 is because there's the non-Anakin Ahsoka parts of that episode, which were very, very average.
Yeah.
And then I gave all 3 of the final episodes 6, 7, and 8 5s. And it came out to a 5.25 average. So what's weird is people who are cheerleading this, I think excessively praising it, are like treating me as though I'm a hostile, like crazy Star Wars fan, which I'm not. And then the people who hate it are just, they're not finding anything positive. I feel like they're too critical, and they're overlooking some of the good things that did happen in the Ahsoka show. But unfortunately, I don't think it is deserving of too much praise or too much criticism. It's deserving of criticism, but not the excessive amount. I came in at 5.25 on my average.
I gave it a score of 7.
Oh.
A little bit, it was okay. There were moments that were fantastic, and then there were moments that were like, oh my God. 7 is okay for me. I tend to give a little extra because the other qualities of the production was really, I think, top form. Actors are really giving it 100%. Special effects are looking pretty good. Choreography is mostly kind of good. They tried. And there's certain things I thought, there were certain moments that really were almost amazing. And then there were moments, of course, they just didn't drop the ball for me. So I enjoyed it more than I didn't like it, but I think it's going to be hard for me to get excited for anything else coming, moving forward. I'm not so sure I'm willing to invest time or energy into like following the story. It just left me very dissatisfied.
I have a question for you after Heath gives his overall summary.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, overall, it's not one that I would have watched on my own. Like, I would not have been motivated to watch Ahsoka. I watched it because Ahsoka, the character, is so beloved by Doug. We wanted to talk about it here. So I was like, all right, well, then they'll come in here and watch it. But I don't think that I would have finished it. Like, if I watched a couple of episodes, I don't think otherwise, if we weren't covering it, that I would have finished it. I think there is a lot to learn that we can learn about the story or the series from storytelling as a sequence of events, because it's definitely a sequence of events, but we don't have any overall arc on it. It completely failed to captivate me, and there was a lot of things. Admittedly, sometimes I was watching it when I was tired, but I would go back and I did rewatch some things. I didn't remember a lot of it. Like, things would happen and I would not remember it. So people keep saying things like the major commentary class will say things like Star Wars is dead, and they've been saying that forever and ever and ever. I noticed that Disney Plus is going. I got an email from Disney Plus saying they were going up in cost, because I resubscribed in order to watch this, but I got an email that said they're going up in cost, and I was like, oh my God, I have to be sure to cancel it in like before 3 more days goes by, or whatever, 4 more days or whatever it is, because I don't want to have to pay like an increased cost. I don't know what you would pay on Disney Plus, like, for that. I guess if you have kids and they watch a lot of Disney movies, then I understand what Disney Plus is for. But for someone like me, like, people have told me to go and watch what's the one that's based on Rogue One?
Oh, Andor.
Andor, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I thought, well, since I'm subscribed, people have said go watch Andor, so maybe I should watch Andor. Like, if I can do that in the next 48 hours, I'll watch some Andor. But
Andor is pretty good.
But this isn't keeping me around. I don't know how they're building Disney Plus off of this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they had The Mandalorian really firing people up. The Mandalorian season 1 launched Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of excitement for it. It was an event. And then season 2 ended with the return of Luke Skywalker, and I would say that was an event. And then season 3 put Jack Black in an episode, and Liz, like they just got lost. And it's the first Star Wars series I just stopped watching, and not for a protest, not because I was mad and I was going to prove Disney. I just didn't care. Literally, just did not care if there was a new episode. I was like, I don't care. Like I have other things to do, and I've never said that about Star Wars. I watched all of Obi-Wan. Even though I thought it was bad, I watched all of Book of Boba Fett, even though I thought that was horrible. I've watched all of them. So anyway, and I watched all of Ahsoka, and I watched some episodes a couple times. There was things that I liked about Ahsoka, the series, and there were great moments for, like, personally, that I was very responsive to, as I'm sure everyone remembers. And then like Heath, there was so much that it was so easy to forget. I fell asleep. Which episode was it? Episode 7. I fell asleep watching it.
Oh man!
And then I was like, I was like, I'm gonna rewatch it. So I rewatched it the next day, fell asleep again, and I was like, oh God, I gotta watch this like during the day or something, because I'm falling asleep watching it. And I was like, maybe that's how they're getting their extra minutes on the Nielsen. You fall asleep, you watch it again. Well, a new metric.
Zero the Blade says the arc of Ahsoka's Rebel season 5. I've heard this from so many people, and I have seen some of Rebels and some of the Clone Wars, because Lou was very big on that. But it's been a long time ago, but I don't think I finished them. But it was a long time ago. But I intentionally didn't go back and try to watch them before I watched Ahsoka, because I thought, hey, I'm a Star Wars fan, so I've got that going for me. I know a lot about Star Wars, but I didn't like follow all of the cartoon. I didn't go back and try to rewatch all that before I watched this. I just came in and watched this, and there was a lot of it that I didn't understand what was going on. But it could be because it's intended to be a Rebel season 5.
Yeah.
I'll just say this, because I hear this mentioned a lot. People will say, this is Rebel season 5. Part of the problem with Ahsoka is that unless you've watched all the Clone Wars and all of Rebels, this won't make any sense, and blah, blah. I hear that a lot. And the reality is, I have seen all of the Clone Wars, every episode. I've seen every episode of Rebels, and I rewatched some recently. That had zero impact on my interest in this show. So you don't need to have seen any of that to be educated enough to enjoy or not enjoy the show. I was fully up to specs, and I still found the show lacking on its own merits. So I actually don't think that's a major problem for the show. That it's attached to Rebels and Clone Wars. I don't think that was a major problem. Personally,
Robert says 8 out of 10 for myself. It's setting up for the next movie, and I want to talk about specifically that as a setup, because I want to talk about if we're being too harsh about moving.
Well, I was going to ask Retro. Obviously, you're losing interest in modern Star Wars, and who could fault you? But if Kathleen Kennedy leaves Lucasfilm in the next 6 to 8 months, and Favreau and Filoni take over and are unencumbered by this, what I would say is a bad vision for Star Wars from Kathleen Kennedy, would that change your mind? Would that rekindle some interest in seeing what a new regime might do?
I think the problem may be a full-scale Disney problem.
Oh.
Because a lot of the I've felt the same way about Secret Invasion, that series, and there was another series beforehand. She-Hulk kind of had the same problem as this. Lots of Easter eggs and things from other shows and other places, and there was very little actual story. Or by the end of the whole ordeal was like, don't pay attention to the story. We're shifting gears, and so it's like, what is going on here? A lot of people left Secret Wars just wondering what just happened. So yeah, it may be a full-on Disney problem.
Interesting point.
To do with the way they are writing their or structuring their TV seasons, and how they're supposed to be done. It could be that, but I also feel like Filoni, this was his baby. And so if we're getting like anything into the mind of Filoni, this is it. I also saw a kind of disturbing disturbing. I felt a disturbance in the force. It was an interview with Filoni about 12 years ago, and I've been looking for that interview all day. Couldn't find to be able to share it with you guys, but from his own mouth, he said that he wasn't going to reveal certain information about, like he was asked about the Mortis gods, which we'll talk about later. And he said that he was never going to, reveal that. He has an idea of who they are and what he wants to do with them, but he'll never reveal that stuff. So it's like part of this sort of storytelling mystery box thing, this mystery boxing that's going on. And I just, it's so irritating because I did recently watch Loki season 1, which I absolutely adored.
Oh,
and
I haven't really seen it.
Yeah, I rewatched it, and I was like, after every episode we got a little bit of the mystery box open. So we got answers all along. Like they were answering questions every episode. So you didn't feel like the last episode was you're going to get all the answers to everything all at once. We did get like a large amount of answers, but it was done in a way where it actually felt more natural and not like, okay, why are we still looking at Balin and asking what is he hearing? What is he doing? So
well, it's actually usually a sign of amateur writing when characters are unnecessarily ambiguous, where they unnecessarily withhold information or don't speak on something that they would absolutely speak on because the writer doesn't know how to deal with it. They think they have a secret. They're like, I don't want to reveal my big secret, so I'll just have the character not say what he or she would normally say. And this show does do that, specifically with Balin Skull and Shin Hatai. I was like, these two would be much more open in their discussions about what they're doing and where they're
when they're alone together.
Especially when they're alone together. Yeah, they're not. You don't have to hide from anybody. And believe it or not,
oh no,
if that's the natural dialogue your characters would have, and it reveals parts of your plot, then that's the way the story goes, and you let that happen. Let the characters reveal part of the plot, and you're gonna have to surprise us another way. You can't surprise us by withholding naturally evolved information at that point.
Okay, I'm gonna message Retro. You're lost, Retro. Have you lost?
Yeah, I don't see her.
Okay. I'm gonna just message her.
Maybe she was riding a Purgil and they just went into hyperspace.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you what. I'm gonna take her down for the moment. Oh no! Then she just cut out. Okay. So that wasn't me. That was her. So she must have lost connection. So she'll be. I will bring her back in when she reappears.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about that point, since that's what we were just talking about. How do we withhold information? Because there is a technique which is valid, which can be used, which is where your characters know things that the audience does not, especially if you are trying to start, for instance, a scene as deep into the action as you can and then leave the scene, as early as you can, which is also completely valid. Here she is. Okay. We were just saying that, okay, so on the subject of hidden information, because I have a lot of that because they do a lot of this in this show, but it's a valid technique to say that sometimes your characters will know things that your audience doesn't. Mm-hmm. When you start a scene, your audience, let your audience try to figure it out as you're coming forward. That's okay. You don't have to spell everything out in arduous detail. Let your audience figure things out as things are happening in action, and then you're going to leave a scene early. That's a completely valid technique of storytelling. That's, I think, what they're trying to do here, and they have tried to do that over and over and over again with character after character and scene after scene, to the point where I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
Uh,
It's going
and
on too
it's great.
long. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going on too long. Like after, episode 5, let's start answering some of the questions and let that happen. And then maybe the last thing for a nice cliffhanger for the season, one big question that we may need. I have 3 pages of questions that about the
Wow.
show. Still, like it came up to 38 questions in total that
Holy
haven't
cow.
that were not answered, and that's ridiculous. We should
So-
have
Go ahead.
yeah, we should have had at least most of these questions answered, and maybe some left for the future. But those are fun things to wonder about. I shouldn't still be wondering about what are in the pods and in the cargo. We should have gotten a glimpse of that. So we'll be like, oh, I mean, theories galore. We can really take off with theories and such things. Give us a taste.
Well, and you know what's hysterical is the one cliffhanger that they had was who was Morok or whatever that guy was, and then they're like, nobody. We got you. And it's like,
Right. It didn't matter.
that's
It was so ridiculous. That was so ridiculous.
I know. And remember, there was like stuff on the internet like your theory sucks, and who is he? Is he Ezra? They're like, he's nobody. You know, that was the big surprise, and it's like that's not good at all. So that's your reveal is a nothing burger, and then all like you just said, there's 38 questions unanswered. If you're trying to be mysterious as a writer, you have to be practical, because if certain information is naturally going to come out, the characters have to be true. Let that information come out. You're not ruining your plot by letting the information out. You just have to figure out a better way to surprise us somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like if Balon came out and said in episode 1, I am going to go to the source of the Force and I'm going to do this thing. That might make him more interesting, because now we know he just threw the gauntlet at the whole world and said he's got this mission. Instead, he's like, what we are going to do will be amazing. And it's like, okay. He's like, it'll be a lot of power. And it's like, okay. It's not mysterious enough. So you might as well tell us what he's after and let us see if he gets there. There's also a technique of having your character establish what's called a conscious conviction. This is what they say they're after. And then there's sometimes an unconscious conviction. They're actually after something else. But tell us, it's not that it didn't work as a mystery is what I'm saying.
So, I mean, this particular story just made me aware of something that is necessary in a lot of stories. It may not be for every story, but a lot of stories need this. We need to be able to know who the characters are that we're dealing with, and just know like what their motives are, background and motives. And maybe some of them you could say like, okay, there's more detail as to why this person is the way they are, but at least we need to know, who they are. And then the surprise is what they do, like what their reactions to things is like where the surprise comes from. Like how will Balin like deal with Ahsoka if she steps in his way in his path, or finds out about what he's really there for? Like those are really exciting things that you can bring to the story that are mysteries. Those are really great ones.
Well, and you have an opportunity for great dialogue. He could tell have Shin Hatai say something like, Ahsoka's a Jedi like you were. You guys both left the Order. Are you worried about her abilities? Like think about it. You're the student, and you have this teacher, this great mentor figure who's really powerful, and he's going to go up against another one like him. Have some dialogue. Have the student ask about it. Are you nervous? Is she better than you? Did she leave the Order for the same reason you left? What did you guys differ on? I just thought there was when we got a little bit of dialogue where he's like, I knew Anakin Skywalker. Many never saw what he became. man, you can have more dialogue along those lines. People would eat that up if you put it out there.
Yeah, I would love to have known what his relationship or his if he had any dialogue with Anakin, if there was anything between them, a rivalry, even. I mean, something. Give us something.
They both like Padme.
Yeah, ooh,
Jedi Order.
that would be cool.
But like when you're talking about the questions to be answered, I actually think that the question about what is in the pods, the casket looking things, that one could have been the question that you're supposed to ponder for the next year before the next season comes out. But you also need to signal to your audience what is it that you need to speculate about. So that one, you're talking about 38 questions. Like that one could have been the question that we should have in an alternate world been going, oh my God, what was actually in those caskets? And then because of this scene, I think it's this. Because of this scene, I think it's this. And that would have been all of the theorizing and the for the next year. But because there's so much in this story that I don't understand, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be theorizing about.
Well, and it's not interesting enough as a mystery.
Right. Yeah. It's like they would need to communicate. Why do I really want to know what's inside these?
Yeah. Well, a statement by Thrawn, like, this cargo means, taking over the known universe. Like it's something that will tell us why this is so important. And should we be scared, or maybe, what is it in there? Are there Ewoks in there? I don't know.
One of the troopers, it slips, and he's like, "Don't drop that."
Yeah.
Very careful with it.
Yes.
Like, a Stark one. Now you're like, "Ooh, are these going to blow up? Or is this some sort of a weapon?" I don't know. Just something enough to give us a taste of the danger these might pose.
Yeah.
And then we could speculate about it all we want. But
and
again,
it's fun to speculate. It's a lot of fun to speculate.
It is.
Well, it's fun to speculate. Also, when the writers understand and have been competent enough to include things in the story that could actually point you to the right answer. This is so important because this is also Game of Thrones stuff, that I'm embedding this stuff here and I'm telling you these are the big mysteries that you can speculate on for the next year, until the next book or TV show comes out. There are clues in here which can lead you to the right answer. There are also things that might lead you off, and everybody's going to talk about that. And then, boom, there is actually an answer that is based on what I've written before. A flaw of something like a Game of Thrones TV show, it's like, hey, don't worry, it could be anything, and then take off in a completely different direction. That also stops people from speculating. People love to speculate. People love the theories. If the writers are competent enough to embed all of the hints, and then when it comes out, everybody should go, oh my God, I should have seen that. Because
it was there all along.
This scene, it actually did lead to that. If nothing actually led to the reveal, you're also going to turn people off.
Yep.
Well, and
excellent.
Well, and Filoni knows how to do it. He had some great. In the Clone Wars, there was a series where Ahsoka was framed for a crime she didn't commit. It was one of my favorite four-part series. And the one of the perpetrators, the secret villain, was Barriss Offee. And but there were clues. And when you rewatch those 4 episodes, you could totally be like, yep, that works. So he knows how to do it. And, in the book I'm writing now, I've got certain hidden information, but I'm leaking out little details specifically for people to, when they reread it, they'll be like, oh my God.
It was right there.
Totally works.
Yeah.
And that's called functionality. You have to have functional mysteries. If it only works because your characters don't ever talk about it, then it's not a functional mystery. That's what I'm saying. At that point, abandon the mystery part, make it common knowledge, and find a way to surprise us somewhere else.
And sometimes, even when I'm watching a really juicy movie that I love, and there's a surprise in it, and like you said, you go back and you rewatch the movie, and you're like, oh, there's a clue, we should have known from that and this too. And it's something I always refer to as like setup payoff.
Yes.
Because you're setting things up to lead to the payoff eventually. Like I watched Coneheads the other day, and there's a scene where the main character plays golf, and so I was like, "What? This is really silly. They're playing golf." Well, later on, he uses that same skill to kill a beast in an arena, and
Totally.
and it's like, there is the payoff. There's the payoff, and those are gratifying for anyone in an audience to see that kind of setup and payoff. They feel like the stuff that they've been watching has not been a waste of time. It feels like, every little bit of this matters, and so
Yes.
that's what we're missing. We're missing from that's missing from this story is feeling like all the things that we endured from the episode 1 through 4 actually mattered. I don't feel like it. I feel like you could take all of those episodes, distill it to 10 minutes, and you wouldn't be any worse.
Well, it's almost like they started it with this big Sabine, Ahsoka, cold shoulder between each other, and then they just kind of then it was like, oh, now it's all about Thrawn. It's almost like, did you guys just like fake the first couple episodes because you needed 2 more episodes? Because
yes,
you didn't even really carry those
They did. I think they did. I mean, there was a lot of wasted time, especially like giving it. I saw it again just to make sure, and the first 4 episodes are very wasteful, but at least the 4th episode has that wonderful fight scene with Balin, and I think it's quite. I was looking at things that were revealed in episode 8 and saying, wow, it would have been great if this was in the first episode.
That's why
I've said things like that before. I like that all this whole series should have been like 3 episodes or something like that, and we move on.
Yeah.
I made a note, and I just have to shout it out because I didn't know this until today, because I was looking at certain actors and actresses, their names in the show. And did you know that you remember in episode 1, Captain Hale? Remember, he's like, I'm calling their bluff. Let him on board.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You know who that is? That's Mark Ralston, Drake from Aliens. Drake, Vasquez's buddy from Aliens.
Oh, really? Okay, I gotta go look at that again.
Yeah, where he's like, Vasquez, you're just too bad. He's one of my favorite characters in Alien. And he's Captain Hale, which I did not know until today. I was like, Mark Ralston is in Ahsoka? Unfortunately, his character was given terrible dialogue. We talked about it before. If you call their bluff, the right move is to not let them on.
Yes, and make sure, keep your crew safe.
Yeah,
and blow them from the skies.
What are they going to do? They're just going to follow you from behind.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this, guys, and I've said this before that that I think that Sabine is the villain of the story for a long time. Or at least I thought she was.
Oh.
But then I was thinking, you know what? All of this is Ahsoka's fault, because she's the one who went to go get that map from the temple, and she should have just destroyed it right then and there.
Yeah. So she gets the map, the modern map in the ancient temple, that leads right to a modern political prisoner in a different galaxy. So she gets that, and she was getting it to find Ezra, though, right?
Right, but you're right. But the witches needed that to find where Thrawn was.
Yeah, it would have been good dialogue for her to say, you know what? Ezra's gone. Unfortunately.
So much for Ezra. His sacrifice.
We like him. But if we go open that door, Thrawn comes in, we got a problem. Ezra, just say your goodbyes and let's move on. There's other fish in the sea.
Yeah. I mean, it's really convoluted.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
Because I had wondered, as someone who has not seen Rebels and the Clone Wars and whatever all the way through, like, why is it so important that we find Ezra? I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
he's
it's
just one
not
guy.
been like you just said. Let's just destroy this map. And yes, he's gone, and it sucked, and he was our friend, but
We really
No.
liked him.
we
You know what
saved
you
the
can
galaxy. So
You know what you can do? I'd be like, write a message, put it in a bottle, throw the bottle in a Purgil mouth, and send them. You know, he'll get the messages. It'll just be one way. I was just thinking too that what they could have done is forget about that stupid map. Have Ahsoka or have Sabine study Purgil migrations, and they would find the same galaxy. You don't even need the map.
Oh,
You
like
could have got rid of the whole thing and just because the whole point is that Purgils migrate there.
yeah.
So you don't even need the map. You don't need that big interstellar ceiling that points to the map like the Staff of Ra. You don't need any of that. If all you need is to study Purgil.
Yeah.
Because that's Ezra and Thrawn disappeared in Rebels in a Purgil. That's why they're there.
oh, they did.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
didn't know,
how
I didn't know
Rebels-
that. I was like, okay, so we got the home of the witches, we got Ezra, and we got Thrawn in the same planet for some reason.
So
they
Rebels
took a
ended.
Purgil.
Right. So
I don't
Rebels
know
ended
that
with
because I didn't watch
Purgil.
it.
That
Well,
shot them off into this other galaxy.
Yeah,
And,
Ezra did some talk to the Purgils and got them to take the ship all the way to the other galaxy.
But what I'm saying is, if you've observed this and seen that they were in a Purgil and they just disappeared, spend your time researching Purgil. You know, go to a Cetacean Institute of the modern day, and
The Purgils are the answer.
yeah, that seems like seems like Purgils are the secret to where they went.
Yeah.
So the map doesn't even. It's like they created another answer to a question that they already started answering. And they just shifted gears.
Here's the thing. So in I guess initially she went after Ahsoka went after Elsbeth because she wanted to know where is Thrawn. She got the information out of her and went to the temple to get the map so she can get to Thrawn. But then she's like, she tells Sabine, oh, we're gonna try to see if we can find Ezra. So she uses Ezra pretty much as a pawn to get Sabine to do this. And then she says, oh, well, we may need to leave Ezra there in order to make sure that Thrawn doesn't get back to this galaxy. So I'm like, okay, well, just destroy that map that you have in your hand.
Throw the key away.
Yeah, just destroy it. She makes that choice, like she actually talks that out and doesn't act on it. So it's just so strange. Also, where did they get the information of how to create the Eye of Sion? Where did the plans come from to make that?
Yeah, that's not being built by any society, is it? That's like so to build a Death Star, you need to muster some major resources and have a huge population base in order to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. They just built these bigger hyperspace engines, which again, you don't need if you're going to use the Purgil plot. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't need the map and you don't need the Eye of Sion. You just need Purgil.
And they were on the planet where Purgils were eating the gas from the planet. I don't know what the heck was the problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The more I think about it, the harder it is to accept the events in the way it's structured. And the other thing, once they got there, supposedly Thrawn and them were there for 10 years. It's like he's got this like rundown Star Destroyer, and Ezra's like right over there.
Yeah. Like
right over there. Right? Yes.
He's right down there.
It's a rundown Star Destroyer, but it's still a whole Star Destroyer.
Yeah. And I was laughing because when Ahsoka's running in the, up to it, he's like, unleash hell or whatever he says. The Star Destroyer is shooting all these green lasers, and I was watching, and you can see lasers shoot like 30 yards in the background of Ahsoka. I was like, who is aiming that laser? Like you've got one person running, and they're like they're way off. Oh my god!
Yeah.
Don't the computers helping you?
BGD, please do. Thank you. Like the stream, everybody. Please do. And I hope you're watching on the new Table Talk YouTube channel because that's the permanent home of this stream, and we're trying to grow it. But also, James says Thrawn must not return to the main galaxy. Must not return to the main galaxy. Unlike any other Imperial, he's killed a lot of our friends.
Yeah, like she's like, he killed some of my friends. I was like, well, so did stormtroopers. So did the Death Star. You know, a lot of things killed friends. You guys were part of the Rebel Alliance. You had casualties. And he fought for the other team. Tell us why he's a threat on a macro scale.
But he never delivers this threat. They try so hard. I mean, I've got different notes here, but there's no point in moving scene by scene or anything. I don't think that's a good idea. But he never delivers, I think, the kind of threat that you want him to, because what he says is often so stupid. Yeah. And again, they're trying to make him like, oh, that's an acceptable loss. This is like as if he's cold and calculating. But it's also like, but you never actually did what you need to do.
Well, yeah, they're like, he loses, and they're like, but you lost. He's like, I planned it that way. He's a genius. No.
That is hilarious.
I checked this specifically because one of the comments that I had here is that, of course, everyone in the show moves so slow, like slow.
Yeah.
But that includes
Ahsoka.
But that includes Thrawn, even when he should be moving fast. Like, it's okay for you to be a cold and calculating individual, but sometimes you need to move fast in order to do something. And you know, but he moves so slow. Even when he's like, oh my God, when it should be like, oh my God, all right, let's get something done in order to execute my plan. I got to move fast. And he doesn't do that. And, you know, he was loading those, what looked like caskets. The stormtroopers are very slowly loading those onto the Star Destroyer.
Stack them, dudes. You know,
we've been here for 10 years. Now we're behind.
Let's get this going on. Like, so the stormtroopers are very slowly loading all of that material on the stormtroopers.
I would complain about that too.
Thrawn is told we're fully loaded. And when he's told we're fully loaded, he orders that hyperspace ring to come down to the planet. And I was like, dumbass. No, you take the Star Destroyer into orbit. Like, it should have been over there. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
He was one step ahead of them by doing it the wrong way. Remember that.
By doing it the wrong way, right? Like if you've got to make sure these other people are not on board this ship, then at that point we're fully loaded, then fly into orbit.
Well, and you know, totally. And honestly, if you want to sell me or anybody on Thrawn, Ezra would have been captured. No problem.
Yes.
That's an easy one for Thrawn.
Yes.
Find one guy who's right out there. Have Ezra captured and have him capture all of the people that come in from hyperspace. I mean, that should have been a no-brainer for a tactical genius. When the people are coming into an unknown situation and you've had 10 years to stake it out, capture them when they appear. And he knew they were coming.
Yeah, he knew that they were coming. So the thing is, why weren't the pods already loaded? They knew.
Shouldn't we do this on Thursday instead of Friday?
Yeah, they knew that Ahsoka was coming. And they knew where she was. Why didn't they know where Ezra was? Why didn't they know that he was on their ship? Why did they let him go? Now, what would really impress me is that if whatever is coming up next, it's that Ezra is secretly working for Thrawn. That would be great. That would be awesome. But I don't know, because everybody's holding Ezra up on a pedestal as sort of like the new Luke Skywalker or the space Jesus or something. And so like, it's like really like, I don't know, like that would actually make the story spicy if he was secretly working for the witches or Thrawn. But at this point, none of the logistics make sense for that character to even be alive or exist in this universe. As they have it.
People. So.
I want to point out what BGD says here, because I am not familiar with the character of Thrawn because I didn't watch the other one. So I get to come at this fresh from that perspective. But I loved what Doug had said in other live streams about the actual character of Thrawn and what he is and what he does. And he just sounds so amazing. But it does not come across at all in this show, and that's what BGD says. What makes Thrawn Thrawn is his penchant for deep study and the understanding of his opponents within their operational context to divine and exploit their weaknesses, which would make him just a killer, freaking awesome villain if they showed that, like Doug had been talking about in other live streams. But the show completely failed to highlight this, right? Like exactly. I have no emotional investment in Thrawn as somebody who has not been through all of that and just watches this. Man, none of that comes over, right? The portrayal of the Thrawn character fell flat, right?
Well, I thought that Lars did a good job with him. He did have some presence. I think that it was ruined in a weird way by having the sort of Lord of the Flies stormtrooper zombies. They're like, like all these rugged guys. I'm like, dude, ditch the armor, bro. Like, it's over. Like, you're stranded on this planet. Don't wear armor. There's no rebellion out here. I could see the stormtroopers mutinying at some point against Thrawn. They're all like still trying to wear their uniform, and it just all seemed a little like a weird military operation. And I feel like Thrawn's like wearing a crisp white uniform. Like, what happened to your standards for the military protocols here? Because they're wearing armbands. It's gone pretty light.
They did weather his uniform. I don't know if I would call it a crisp uniform. They don't weather a whole lot in the show. They do not like Ahsoka's. But I did notice that it appears that they tried to express some of that with weathering on the cuffs of his uniform and stuff like that. So and I noticed that because, like I said, Ahsoka is not weathered. People talk about like, oh my God, it's cosplay Ahsoka because she's not weathered. But I think they tried to impress some of that 10 years in the weathering of his uniform.
Yeah. I saw that.
I think they tried that.
I guess what I'm saying is, go ahead.
He doesn't appear I know that it's been 10 years, and technically the character is 68 years old. But I feel like compared to what the character was in Rebels, he's so different physically, and just like the way his whole philosophy seems to be different. It just feels different. We've got the same voice, right? And we've got a lot of dialogue, but I'm finding him to be very clunky. His whole interaction with Sabine, I was like, oh, okay, great. These guys, there's definitely some tension. I think if I would have just shot her right there. Like okay, one problem down, let's go. Like, why are we giving her a complete, tour of the place? Giving her
giving her the barracks.
Yeah. Like, why are we giving her like a way to defeat you? And also her knowing who Thrawn is, should have known that she was being followed. Okay, and Ezra should have known that she was followed. But when they meet, they're so casual and like, yeah, okay,
that meeting was very.
There was no urgency.
That's how they went with this. It's not like we discovered Ezra in the middle of something important. It's literally like he's hanging out with turtles. Just hanging out. He's like,
he's just hanging out with these turtles, right?
These are my friends. That one's Wilson, like from.
And when he shows up, he's like, everyone else, like Ahsoka and Sabine, are like, oh, we should hang out with these turtles too. And
what is up with that?
I'm really wondering why they want to hang out with these turtles.
This guy with no interaction for 10 years, stranded in another galaxy. Imagine if you landed on a planet by yourself. You're gonna go nuts.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to see him either nuts, like Ezra, or he decided to join Thrawn. Be like, hey, look, there's no rebellion or empire out here. Well, let's just all hang out,
work together, right? Yeah.
This goes back to no one being in a hurry in the show for some reason, which includes Ezra, Sabine, Ahsoka. Like,
Ahsoka.
by the time they're hanging, like, am I wrong? Did I miss something? Because I could have missed something. Because I could have forgotten about it, and I just didn't go back to watch it to care. So I could have. There could be something here, but I'm like, okay, they found Ezra, but the only way to get back to your galaxy is to be on board that Star Destroyer. Like,
Yeah.
you found Ezra, you're there, but you're in another galaxy. Everything you care about is back home. If you want to get home, you need to be on board Thrawn's Star Destroyer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but they don't care about that. They follow around these turtles for a reason that I don't know. And every time I saw that, I was like, you guys need to be getting back to the Star Destroyer because it could fly off at any time. I didn't get it. I didn't get it. No one in this movie or this TV show is in a hurry when they should be hurrying to do things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, could you imagine if Ezra saw the Star Destroyer take off? I'd be like, oh, shoot.
You're right, because if it takes off, it's like, oh, yeah, that's it. Oh, my God. Like, I mean, that's it. So you've got to get back on it. And even Shin and Balon.
Like, they're just...
Like, I don't, in retrospect, I have no idea why they rode off, because they rode off to go and kill Sabine and Ezra, right? Right? They rode off to go and do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? I don't know, because they presumably want to get back home too. And Thrawn does have a line, which is completely right. It seems like, we can maroon them here. There was some kind of line where Thrawn says, like, we can maroon them here.
Run out of time.
We take off, right? Yeah, right. And so, like, then why would you have those guys ride off to kill them? Like, load up these caskets, whatever's important, and then fly off in the atmosphere and get home. Like, so that's another. I have that note here. I forgot that Balon and Shin were flying around. I was very pro Balon and Shin early on. We love Ray Stevenson, Balon, it seems, around here. And after the first 2 episodes, I was also very excited about Shin. I was like, okay, that seems like an interesting character. But like, you're talking about a mystery that, like, one of Retro Nerd Girl's 38 characters. What 38 questions? Why do they seem so unconcerned they're stranded in a new galaxy? That seemed like something like that. Oh, they're going to act unconcerned. Like, Shin's going to raise her lightsaber to those, raiders or whatever it is, and they know something we don't. Well, what is it? Why would everyone be acting so weird that they're now stranded in another galaxy and appear to not care?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's the problem with this series, including the choreography is like that. We've got a lot of characters just standing around while battles are happening.
Yeah, blocking. That's called in stage. It's called blocking, where you position characters and where they move. There's a whole art form to it in theater where you have to have characters move in different positions so that A, it looks natural, B, it looks like it's part of the scene, and C, it doesn't obstruct another actor. It's achieving a lot of stuff, and you can tell when it's not being done.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole group of troopers, like, right behind Elsbeth and Ahsoka, watching them fight. I'm like, what is this? You're supposed to grab the lady with the with the Jedi weapons, and hold her down while the other lady strikes. You're not supposed to just stand there. And also, Sabine has like a scene with a whole bunch of troopers, and I believe Ezra is already on the ship, which there's a problem with that too. The trooper just stands around and waits for Ezra to finish beating up his friend before he stumbles in to do something. There's a lot of that happening where troopers are just waiting to be killed. And it's really frustrating. Also, Elsmith gets 2 swords to the stomach. Why didn't the sisters raise her from the dead?
Just have Sabine put a Band-Aid on it. She's like, "Don't worry, these are nothing. You'll be back in a couple hours.
You'll
back out there, rub some dirt on it."
He's not dead. Ooh, would that be really interesting if she's still alive and
Oh God.
raise her up from the dead?
But,
Oh.
you talk about no character arc and no character development. When you talk about stoic Ahsoka and stoic Sabine, that they're now trapped in that other galaxy, but they act exactly the same way they did at the beginning. Like presumably they're trapped in the same galaxy. They act exactly the same way they did in the beginning. There was no urgency there, and they do say something like, "Well, at least Ezra got home." Well, two things. First of all, you don't know he got home because he could have gotten on board that Star Destroyer and they go, "Oh my God, look, it's you," and blown his brains out like immediately. So you don't know that he got home.
Oh man.
And second of all, even if he did get home, you guys seem really okay with him getting home and you guys being stranded, like swapping places with him. And so if you wanted that to be the case, you really need to tell me like why it was essential that Ezra get home.
Get home, yeah.
And even to the point of ourselves being stranded. And
Yeah,
they
it was
have the
important.
exact same stoic look on their face. Like, do you guys know something that I don't? What I was going to earlier, like, why does Ahsoka and Sabine seem perfectly okay with being stranded in a new galaxy? I have no idea.
But see, that's a director issue. So you always see it like a director, so like I remember even when Ahsoka was in the mouth of the Purrgil in I think episode 6, and she's like, "Well, here we go," and it's like, "Well, hold on, cut. You're about to be leaping into deep space."
Yeah.
They just said if they, you could end up nowhere. You're inside a whale in space, and you're going to a place that like is uncharted. Show a little fear. The director should be there to catch that. She can't be like, well, hopefully we get there in a couple hours. You're going to a new galaxy, which I would like to hear your thoughts on this too. Who cares? It's just another planet in space. There was no gravity given to being in a new galaxy. There was no different physics. There was no different look to the worlds. There was the Force didn't behave differently. There was no evidence that it was anything else but another planet in space with Star Destroyers and Stormtroopers. So I was very underwhelmed with the new galaxy plot line, given that it meant nothing in real terms.
Yeah, and also, is Peridia the only planet in this galaxy? Because if there are other planets, are there systems? Are there cities? What else is there to this galaxy? And is it like the main galaxy at all? And so the way it's set up now, there's no interest or mystery around it because it's just a dead rock almost, with a few ties to old, Jedi temple stuff, like the history of the galaxy 1, 2, and 3, in which I really want to know what those stories are. It would have been nice to know what's expected to be on this planet and this other galaxy.
You know what they could have done? Have Ezra be like John Dunbar in Dances with Wolves. Have him he's studying the planet. He has studied Dathomiri lore. He's got these books he has been writing. So now you have a character that has some knowledge, and then he could also tell us what's different about this.
Exactly.
That would have been an easy and believable. That would have explained what he's been doing for 10 years.
Yes.
It would have created an expert on this new galaxy for free in Ezra and made him more interesting. You didn't get any of that.
No.
It was just party time with the turtles.
We didn't. This was actually one of my first notes about this galaxy here, because it did not sell me on being on a new galaxy at all. I thought this was a major problem of this whole show. I thought, as it turns out, I feel like there was no reason to go to a new galaxy. Now, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the situation
Exactly.
was within Rebels or Clone Wars or whatever they'd set up previously. I'm just talking about from what I was seeing in this show. You could have completely done everything in this show by being at this particular planet that's very difficult to get to because of the characteristics of a nebula that swirls around it. You can't, just get to it by ordinary hyperspace, or whatever else. You could have completely done that just as a separate planet. What Doug is saying, I believe, is completely correct. That I would have said, like, we're about to go to another galaxy. If we're going to go to another galaxy, it needs to be very different than anything we've ever seen before, which is a challenge because Star Wars has got so much different stuff. But like, if we're going to another galaxy, it needs to be very different and needs to be like visually representing that difference. Instead, we came to a planet in a different galaxy that has grass and rocks on it.
Yeah, big deal.
I realized that realistically, there is probably, in another galaxy, it is probably possible that there are planets that have grass and rocks. Okay, I mean, I get that. But I'm talking about from the storytelling perspective, when you arrive in another galaxy, as much as they played that up, you need to really represent that on screen. Now that's a budget. There's a budgetary issue there, I'm sure, but
they opened that door.
Do it. And if you can't do it, then it needs to be something else, like another region. A friend of go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you could, if you open that door as the writer, you walk through it, then you have to grapple with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or you could just have Purgils go both ways, and Thrawn can come back whenever he wants. Well, it's not unsolvable. You don't have to go to another galaxy.
Robert says, I'm wondering this too. Robert actually said this. Robert, and I don't know, Ahsoka can come back using, do space whales go the other way?
Yeah, yes, they do. Because the witches said that the Purgils were used in the past to travel to the other galaxy.
Oh, that's right. The Purgils brought the witches to the main galaxy.
Well, we know that they can go to that galaxy, but remember there was a ring around that planet.
That is their cemetery, right?
Right. So I was under the impression, and I could be wrong, that the Purgil can go one way and then they die there, but they can't go back because there's no gas there to eat or something.
I'm not sure of that. That would be one thing, that the Purgils, when they die, they jump into hyperspace and they go here and die. But no, Retro Nerd Girl does have the point that the witches came from the galaxy, from Galaxy B back to main galaxy, right? That's how they got there, right?
Yeah, they traveled through the whales, and I'm not sure if they called, because maybe if you call to the whale and they don't have to stay in the planet for very long, but they pick you up and they take you to like cool. A cab, like an Uber,
But even the fact that we've got this controversy means they didn't clarify that. Like, as I'm watching this show, and like I said,
exactly,
I don't understand, because I thought
it's a quick line. They say it really quickly.
Like, you're right. Do the whales come over here to die? Because that could be. It's a one-way trip, and that's when they're about to die, they take this hyperspace trip and they die over there. Okay, that could work. I mean, that could work, but you need to explicitly specify that. But like Retro Nerd Girl is saying, can you go the other way? Because that does imply they're going the other way, that they ride this whale. But then, I'm not sure
if they can go both ways, if they can travel back and forth, then Thrawn can get back. Ezra can get back. They're not stranded.
Yeah, they're not stranded. And I don't think they are. I think that they can use the Force and call some Purgils. They just have to concentrate for
I want to point out, this was pointed out to me in the comments section by a friend of mine who goes by the YouTube handle Wild Barley. Because I was talking about this on this very subject on the Morning Grind, and he actually did point out, which I did not know, that Camino, the planet Camino, which is like the cloning planet, is extragalactic. Because I was talking about the first, right? Doug is like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. It's not in another galaxy. Because I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Because I was like, this is the first time you've left the galaxy. He was right. That technically it's not, because Camino is not in the galaxy, the main Star Wars galaxy. But it's not. But the critical point here is that it's not in another galaxy. It's outside of the galaxy, and there's a hyperspace like thing or rail that goes to it. And so I looked that up on the Star Wars wiki, and it's true that Kamino is not in the galaxy, but it's not in another galaxy.
But in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan goes into with the younglings. Yoda's training younglings. And he's like, where's Obi-Wan's lost planet? Obi-Wan walks around. Remember, he puts that thing in and puts all the stars out there, and the younglings are looking. And he's like, it should be right here. And he's like, where is Obi-Wan's lost planet? And the kids are like, somebody went into the database to erase it. And Yoda's like, the youngling is right. Remember that? So he was in the galaxy.
Right. Well, okay. But according to even the Wikipedia. So I'm just saying, according to the
They must have
Wikipedia,
changed that.
it is an aquatic planet located in a remote star system in wild space of the galaxy, and is thus considered extragalactic due to its position on the galactic disk.
Interesting.
So I just want to point that out, that you're not going to another galaxy in Kamino, but that you're right that technically, apparently, Kamino is considered extragalactic. I don't think that hurts my idea of then you've got to make going to another galaxy better. But I want to point out that it appears right when I said you've never been outside the galaxy in Star Wars. Apparently Kamino. Oh no, Sable says that's bizarre. Wild space is already part of the. So I'm just saying that we don't have time to debate that point. I don't think. I'm just saying we haven't been to another galaxy, but people had pointed out in the comments that you might have been into extragalactic space before in Star Wars. Okay.
Interesting. Well, going, launching into another galaxy is a pretty freaking big deal. And they treated it like they're hopping in the RV for the weekend.
It was not done well. It was not done with what should have been done.
Yeah.
So one of the things I thought was fairly good, and was Huyang.
Oh yeah,
I thought he was actually a pretty cool addition to the Star Wars, pantheon of characters. Yeah. I thought David Tennant, who does the voice, was awesome. Yeah, he gave that droid some personality, and he seemed he had some of the best dialogue. Right.
Yes, absolutely. He did deliver a lot of exposition. And explained a lot about the characters, but and unfortunately, I think that may have been kind of a mistake in my opinion. But for the benefit of Huyang as a character, he was fantastic, and I just wish they had to disperse some more of that kind of dialogue to some other people.
Totally.
What did we think about him uttering the lines in a galaxy far, far away?
I loved it. It was like, it felt like, okay, now we're opening up a mystery box, if you will. It's like, what's inside? But they took it away.
I liked it as well. I thought, well, I'm almost in lockstep with Retro's take on this. It's implying that the Jedi have some relationship to this faraway galaxy in their old mythological stories and lore. That the Path of Peridea was talked about. They say, I think Balon Skull says the Path of Peridea was, a thing with the Jedi. So it's implying that there was some sort of a relationship. Maybe they went back and forth in the early days, in the First Age, whatever. That there's some connection there. So when he said a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I thought it was cool because it's how Lucas introduces us to this mythology.
Yes.
And now inside the show, they're echoing this idea that there is another galaxy far, far away, even in the Star Wars universe. So I thought it was effectively used, and it was used appropriately. But to Retro's point, so what? It's trees and a rock. That's and turtles.
Well, that's the secondary point. Does it pay off? Does it pay off?
Right. It doesn't pay off, and it really it doesn't matter that they even said it, because it just doesn't really pertain to the story. We just know that there were stories being told to younglings, and what those stories are, we're just left in the dark. Because if we knew the stories, then maybe we'd get a glimpse of what all this mysterious gobbledygook is like. That's what it is. It's just like minutia at this point because like there's a mystery about what's on the planet and possibly the Mortis gods, possibly all of these characters we've not met before. There's like hieroglyphics behind at the temple, the Night Sister temple that's leading towards Kujet. And the what are the name of those people? I forgot the name of the group that has the power. Like Kujet is a powerful dark user, dark force user, and all that stuff is on the hieroglyphs of the temple. And so I'm like, why are the Night Sisters in cahoots with this character? Yeah, let me find out the name of those people.
Yeah, and they didn't quite explain the relationship Thrawn had to those 3 Dathomir witches either. That they seem to be in his service, but I don't really understand that dynamic. This so-called alliance there.
What?
The Zepho. The Zepho is what they have you guys heard of the Zepho?
No.
Okay, I believe it was from one of the games, the Zepho. They had a character by the name of Kujet who is a very, very powerful dark force user, and I mean his name just shows up on this thing behind Thrawn, and it's like, what's going on here? What does that have to do with the witches, and why is it here?
Interesting.
So,
Boy,
yeah.
good catch.
Well, I didn't catch it. The internet did, and what the internet also caught the fact that on Balin's wrist, on his gauntlet, he has the names of Luke, Leia, Chewie, C-3PO, and Ben Solo on there.
Oh,
what?
Yeah, on his gauntlet that he wears on his arm. It's like, what is going on? I'm like, what? Why does he have that?
Is that just boy? That's weird. I don't like Ben Solo being on there. That that leads right into the sequel trilogy.
Yes.
I had no idea about that. I hadn't seen that at all.
Yeah,
boy, that's interesting. I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery that's going on and mysterious theories that are happening right now out there, and I think a lot of people are eating that. That's the fuel that they're going on. But to be very honest with you, if you didn't know anything about any of the stuff before, and this is your first time seeing this show, that last shot of Balin is completely confusing. Right? Like, where is he and who? Why is okay? They have statues on this planet.
I'd forgotten about them.
Yeah, but do you know who they are?
No.
Man, there's so many things that should have been. The more I think about that finale, like they really, I don't know, man. Like Thrawn, you're right. He did not sell himself as a tactical anybody. What would have been cool too is if Balin was in like almost in the role of a bodyguard as Ahsoka came in. Balin, got in his way to confront her, especially knowing that he's already beat her.
Yeah,
he's the most intimidating, most interesting character in the show, I think, and totally lost in that last episode. And now that the actor has passed away, Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. They're going to have a heck of a time replacing him. Someone, there was an actor, I forget the actor's name, but it was a very convincing, very similar look. Lee Schreiber. Anyway, it looked like if you put a beard on the actor, it might be.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it's just a shame that the most compelling character they have is played by an actor who's no longer with us. That's unbelievable.
Well, it just proves a wasted opportunity. They had him. He was working for them, but it had an opportunity to really deliver a good story for him, and they dropped the ball.
Yeah. Oh, Stephen Lang. That's The guy who played
Oh,
Ike
yeah.
Stanton in
He might be good,
Tombstone,
yeah.
or Colonel Quaritch in Avatar.
Avatar? Yeah. Yeah, he might be good.
Feel like
I
a
was going
shaved
to say
tail
that
Louis.
just going back to a long time ago in Galaxy, I think I would have argued to not say those words. I would have not had those words in there, especially you guys mentioned that it doesn't pay off later. But if you're going to mention those words, they really have to pay off. But I
Yes.
think I would have said,
Agreed.
do not say those words, because those are the magic words that initiate us in the mundane world that we live in. As soon as you see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, those are the words that cast you then into the Star Wars universe. And to put those words as actual in-universe words in Star Wars, I would not have done. I would not have done that. I would have said those are the invocation that brings us into this universe.
That's a good point.
Do not make that something that someone says.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see
I
that.
thought that robbed them of their magic power.
Considering
I
there
like
was no
that.
payoff, yeah, you're probably right.
So I would have argued against that. I mean, you guys are right that it didn't even go, it didn't pay off, but they said those words. If you're going to say it, if you're going to say them, that's why I would have said, if you're going to say them, they really, really have to pay off. So my would be, don't say them.
It's so funny because when they said those words, I immediately thought, oh my God, is Earth involved in this story? Because I was like, oh my God.
Right.
I felt like, oh my God, Earth could be in this other galaxy or one of the other galaxies.
Invading Manhattan.
Exactly, because those words are said here on Earth that take us into Star Wars.
Yeah.
So Star Wars shouldn't say those words.
Yeah, unless they're taking it to Earth.
That's
It's going to be like Independence Day, but with the Empire coming to Earth.
No, where we'd be chopped liver.
Oh, man.
Imagine.
You know who else was kind of wasted, I think, is Elsbeth. The actress, Diane, I think it's Inosanto, is a trained like martial artist and knows like bow stats and all. And she would have been awesome. And we get a little bit of that. You know, she does do a little bit, but with Rosario Dawson moving at the pace that she moved at, it seemed kind of squandered to have this great martial artist slowing down for the actress. Now, put a stunt double in there or something.
Okay, I have notes on that. I was going to say something about that because in the second to last episode, Ahsoka is doing some katas, some like Jedi katas, listening to a recording of Anakin. Oh, yeah. And it did pass through my head briefly. I would have not thought about it again, but it did pass, except for what happens later. But if it had only been that, it passed through my head that she didn't look good doing those.
Yeah. There were a few moments.
Convince me as being a Jedi master, whatever, but a major Jedi doing these martial art moves. She didn't convince me, but at that moment, it was a thought that passed through my head, and I probably would not have thought of it again, except for in this battle. And this is a directing thing again. The battle between Elsbeth and her when they're on the tower, whatever, doing their lightsaber and sword battle. At that moment, all of that came back to me because I was like, this on screen looks really bad. Yeah. And I didn't know at the time that, yes, and I wrote down the actress's name, but
who plays Elsbeth?
Yeah, who plays Elsbeth?
Diane Inosanto.
DeSanto, right? Yes, that she is a trained martial artist. Because as I was watching that sequence of them fight at the end episode, it magnified that to me, which made me remember the bad kata of Ahsoka doing the bad kata, because Elsbeth looked so good fighting.
Yes, she did.
So good fighting. And Rosario Dawson, even though I like her portrayal overall, she looked so bad fighting there. Elsbeth would have cleaned her clock. That you and just I have to say that if you're a director, you have to realize that, okay, this is not working on camera. Ahsoka looks so bad in this fight. We have got to have a stunts woman in here to portray. I mean, it'd be like me. Like if you wanted me to portray a Jedi, I mean, maybe I could, but then like, okay, wait a minute, but I'm not a martial artist. When it comes to fighting, you may well want to have a stunts person come in and take my place, because especially if you're going to have another martial artist being that, I'm just not going to look good. That's just something the director should see, and that is the director's criticism. It's not the actor's criticism. It's that looked really, really bad to me. It was so obvious that the actress who portrayed Elsbeth is so much more physical. Because we talked about that when we saw Doug, you did, when you talked about Ariana Greenblatt. And we all loved her portrayal of young Ahsoka. And Doug, you even talked about how physical she was, that she was able to bring the physicality of the role.
Big time.
Yeah, and she did. And
she was fabulous.
Yeah, when it came to push come to shove, when Ahsoka had to fight Elsbeth, Rosario Dawson did not bring it. And I just thought that it was very, very obvious on screen.
Agreed. Yeah. One of my notes was lightsaber battles were all over the place in this show, because there were some very good lightsaber battles, and then there were some very bad ones. So it was a shame. I was really happy to see Jedi and lightsabers kind of getting back into Star Wars, because as good as Andor was, it really stayed away from that.
Yes.
But here we get some real Star Wars kind of magic coming back. And the lightsaber battles were just all over the place. Like I think we talked about it last time, how cool the Anakin or the Balon and Ahsoka lightsaber battle was.
Yeah,
there was a decent one with Sabine and Hattai at one point. And I thought Anakin and Ahsoka were pretty good. Anakin was great.
Yeah. Your eyes only pretty much watch him.
He was just...
I even did like a little spinny spin. That
was awesome.
Oh yeah. But what I was saying, like as a director, if I saw that fight scene, I would have done one thing, which was just sped it up just a little.
You can do that in the frame rates.
Yeah, I know it's not always the ideal, but some of the moments were just like a smidge too slow. Like it just was like not really as crisp as it should have been visually. Someone on Twitter took a side by side with Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting versus the fight with Elsbeth and Ahsoka, and it was like, eek. You really see the difference, and
it's very slow.
Yeah, the eye does not can really see that. You can really see that visually. Whereas I'm sure she's doing her very best. It's just not as fast as it needs to be for an expert Jedi. And
there are fighting styles that require little movement. There are, and she has two lightsabers. They should make her more defensive if the actress is struggling with speed. Have Elsbeth do all the high and have Ahsoka simply be on defense where she moves very little. Yeah. But there's fighting styles that are designed for that.
Yeah. And that was really pretty sad. But yes, you're absolutely right. Diane was incredible. She just the movement, and you can see the way her body is moving with the sword. It's like there's certain stylistic things that you can pick out from what she's doing. That's like, and there's like some kung fu moves in there that I was like, ooh, okay, they brought in some kung fu, and it was great to see her. And the battle was okay. I like, just like you said, it just needed that punch up, and I absolutely disliked the idea of her letting the other two pass. Like she could have engaged all three, and I mean maybe she felt she couldn't as a character, but I think there is no reason why she couldn't have taken them all on, because she was that good.
Well, and that would have made her character that much more interesting. We'd be like, oh, she's taking on the crew here. Let's see how she does.
You're not getting by.
I would love that.
Yeah, like just the tenacity of her to even think that she can go up against three would be interesting. And then bring in the stormtroopers for crying out loud, and let them mix it up, because they they were just standing there, you know.
Man, you needed to have Thrawn win to end season 1, and I think something decisive. Capture those characters, like you said. Have Elsbeth take them out. I like the idea. You're not going to pass, like a decision, and then she makes her stand. You have the Witches of Dathomir sitting there. I mean, have the bad guys win.
Yeah.
I think if you have the bad guys win, we care more about the good guys. We don't know what's going to happen to them. We're scared of Thrawn because in my head, Thrawn getting back to the galaxy after this great tactical genius. With a Star Destroyer, with several squadrons of TIE fighters and undead stormtroopers, failed to kill anyone.
Yes.
It's like, well, then who cares if he's back? This
Yeah,
guy's not dangerous.
Yes.
I'll let him watch my cats.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, right? There were no actual casualties on the side of the good. Not saying that we needed Sabine to die or anything, but a scar.
But it would have
a
been
mark.
better if she did.
Ouch. A scar or a mark or like losing a limb or something. Star Warsy, right? That's Star Wars. You don't get out of these battles without sacrifice. So it is very especially after episode, was it 2 or 3, where there was no consequence for getting stabbed with a lightsaber? I think Elsbeth, Elsbeth should be just fine. So.
She is fine. She only got impaled with a lightsaber. Well, you're making me think too. We should go back and watch the episode in Mandalorian. Ahsoka and Elsbeth fight there too, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They do. Yes.
Yeah. It's actually really good. It's actually really good. And there's also a scene with her on a rooftop that's really amazing. So I don't know if it's the choreography because there's a lot of things that happen during the choreography throughout this entire season that makes me go like, oh gosh, that doesn't, you have stormtroopers that are just standing around waiting for their turn to die. That's not good. So you can watch it, you see this happening, you're like, that would not happen. They would all storm you and you would be torn to bits.
I was even watching Empire Strikes Back a little bit 2 nights ago. Mm-hmm. And I was watching the stormtroopers and I was like, the stormtroopers were like a meme when I was growing up, basically, on how they can't hit anything, but they were never portrayed as dumb or comical. Like they were a constant threat. Like when they're escaping Cloud City, they're really chasing Leia and Lando. And I'm like, the stormtroopers, and when they came into Hoth, like the stormtroopers were still menacing and dangerous. We joked that they never hit anyone important, until I guess they did Jedi, they get Leia.
Yeah, they hit her once.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like these guys don't present even that basic menace. Yeah. They're like you said, they're just like, and I'm like, well, who cares? Like, who cares if they're wrapped up and they're night troopers? If you just shoot them and they fall over, and until the final scenes, that's all they were doing. I'm like, they're just stormtroopers.
Yeah.
They're not anything special.
Yeah, and that really disappointed me in episode 7. Like, I mean, episode 7 was my least liked episode because so many things were undone in that episode. Including Balin, like his character fell apart for me. Shin's character fell apart for me. It was like, what is going to happen here? And I think the last episode did a lot of good things as far as fill us in on a few of the questions we had. Why did Ahsoka leave Sabine? That was a burning question. At least now we know that. What was the rift between them? And I was like, wow, if we would have learned that in episode 2, we would be off to some other detail.
I said that too. I was like, oh, because like I said, again, someone who's not seen Rebels or if they Clone Wars or whatever is that's important. I had never seen that. I was like, oh, well, that's an interesting piece of information. If we had learned that in episode 2 or 3, we might have had conflict.
Yeah.
Even episode 1.
Yeah.
One, right? Or episode 1, right? Yeah. For that matter.
You know, so I'm writing book 2 for Empress Theodora, and I have to pass certain information on, and you give clues in dialogue all the time. It's not smart to withhold information in the early going. You want people to understand as much as possible.
Yes.
So they get into the story, the interpersonal conflict. Like right away, if with the first line of dialogue with Ahsoka and Sabine was an instant clue as to what the rift is, now I'm invested. But when you just have her folding her arms, kind of walking around, and hey, good to see you, and the other one's like, yeah, it's like that's not getting me invested because I don't understand what they're doing.
Oh man.
Well, let me give you another example of something I didn't like in the last episode, which I think is bad storytelling. So you let me know what you think. That Elsbeth in the last episode receives the gift of shadows. I have no idea what that is. Like I thought she was a witch or something, and now she's going to receive the gift of shadows. So there's a rule in storytelling which I appreciate more and more as I go. That's by the time you get to the 50% point of the story, you can't introduce anything new after that.
I agree.
Yeah, you need to wrap up everything that concludes the story with everything that's already been introduced in the first 50%. And I appreciate that more and more. This gift of shadows thing, that whatever happened there, violated that rule to me in an extremely obvious way. Because, again, maybe I missed something, and maybe I did. Maybe I forgot something. Maybe they mentioned it. Maybe it's someplace else, whatever, or it's another show. If it was another show, it needed to be in this one. I needed to set up whatever that gift of shadows was. Elsbeth needed to say something very early on in the first episodes. If I do this, then I will be rewarded with the gift of shadows, and I will get this or whatever.
Yeah.
What that is. They dropped this in the last 40 minutes of the entire TV show. Oh, you're going to get the gift of shadows. I had no idea what that was, why it was significant, why we should care. They spent a lot of time with that incantation that they cast. It didn't even pay off. That's a common theme. She got this thing, but then still apparently dies.
What makes her so special now that she has this gift? Because she only looks different. She doesn't even
Good point.
It's a new costume, but it's not an actual thing. Like now she's Super Saiyan, like she's got special powers now. She can conjure up like certain things. Like give us something. And she doesn't even use any of her magic during the fight scene. Like use the magic.
If she gets this gift, then she'll be able to something. And we don't want her to have that. And but she got it. Now she's going to be that I had no idea what that was. It was an introduction of this in the last minute, and it was done in the same way that they've done so much for this entire episode. The supposed like pauses and you're going to receive the gift of shadows. They paused. They must know something that I don't. That must be full of gravitas, and that must be important. They were trying to communicate some type of importance about that I thought completely fell flat.
Well, another rule, I shouldn't say rule of storytelling, but kind of a dynamic. If you're trying to give gravity or weight to something, don't make it a quick, easy thing. Like if the gift of shadows is a big deal, then don't have them be like, hey, you won the gift of shadows. Boink. That's it. There's no like, is there like they should have it should have been at a certain location. It should have been more ceremonial, more ritualistic. It should have been given weight, because then we would see all that and be like, this is a big deal.
Her sacrifice. We see her sacrifice. We feel like, okay, she's deserved this for all that she's done. And we, even though she's not the good guy, we still need to feel something for the bad guys too. We need to know how desperate they are to getting their goals. And this is like when they're fighting, then it's gonna really feel when Ahsoka is fighting Elsbeth. It also doesn't feel like they're fighting for a whole lot. It doesn't feel like they're fighting for like their galaxy. It just feels like, oh, it's just another opponent.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, and just even the gravitas, in Game of Thrones. Remember the Greyjoys? You'd have the drown god. You'd have to go into the ocean and then you drown. And if you came back to life, then you were allowed to, I forgot what that you could be king or something like that. But I was like, watching that, you're like, oh shit, dude! Like they're just gonna drown you. Like I'd be scared.
You might not come back, right? Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah. But because we can relate to drowning, it's a natural fear. And that plays into that. This was like, you're going to get the gift of shadows. Me. And they just kind of like do something. Like, it's like, oh, okay. I guess that's a big deal. It didn't seem like a big deal. And to your point, Retro, it didn't seem like anything changed.
No. And when it was time for her to leave, they were like, all right, bye.
Yeah. Thanks,
like, yeah, you were, at least you got the gift. Take care of yourself.
Good luck out there. Keep your head on a swivel.
Oh man, yeah, that was really anticlimactic, and like if they were gonna if they knew that she was gonna be sacrificed like that, or even if there was a little bit of
help
protest to her having to go, like we just gave her the gift of shadows. You can't just sacrifice her like that by herself. Let's give her some help or something. Make it feel like like, I mean, it just feels like okay, great, and another expendable person that we followed for 8 episodes.
I can almost imagine the 3 witches watching from the tower, being like, "Oh wow, she's in a battle right now. Let's see how we just gave her the gift of shadows. Let's see how she." Oh, that's a shame.
Well, I thought this was somebody else who was saying that they organized the stormtroopers are going to sacrifice themselves, and then they tell Elsbeth she's going to sacrifice herself. And I forget who this was that I was listening to or whatever was saying, like, if you're trying to create drama in your story, stop telling us that these people are about to die when they go out to do something.
Oh man, that's so true. That
would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, here are the people who are just going to die.
Yeah.
It's all a part of Thrawn's tactical genius.
It's all part of Thrawn's major plan.
Oh, that's
he deploys 2 TIE fighters for the first time in 10 years. Loses them. I mean, that's not how a tactical genius operates.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the TIE fighter issue too was another thing. I know that the stormtroopers and other people have problems aiming, but they were literally like right there, and why they could not hit that target is beyond unreasonable. And at least hit the ship. Okay, well, you hit the ship there, it goes down. There's still a way for you to write a story around that. They didn't even bother. They were like, okay, let's have them miss the whole time.
Every battle, every war since I think the 40s, air power is a big deal to infantry. Like when you see those movies in Vietnam or something, like, hey, hold on, air power is coming in. It's like freaking angels coming in, and they come in and they strafe the area, they knock the enemy out. Like, air power is a big freaking deal to guys on the ground. And not only were the guys on the ground inept, the air power did nothing, and they lost the air power.
Yeah.
I
Very
didn't
much
have this
so.
on the notes, but it was so ridiculous. Like, I didn't even understand when Sabine decides to ram the TIE fighters with her ship.
Yeah, that was
nothing about that made any sense. That
No.
she decides to ram them, and it wasn't like an act of like utter and absolute desperation. That the ship goes down. First of all, the TIE fighters just let her. They were both perfectly lined up for that ship to ram them, and she took advantage of that. And then everyone was really okay with that, especially Ahsoka. Like, that was my ship. Like, what did you do? And now it's
Well,
laying up. But it's so easy always to fix that ship. I mean,
yeah,
how many
because it
times
was
have we
yes.
had that ship blown up and then they go and fix it?
It's fixed so well that they
No.
are taking it into outer space even after
Yeah, it's
that. And I'm like,
space-worthy.
are you kidding me? That ship should be a mess right now. They
Ahsoka
just
should have been like, next time, use the lasers. That's why we have them.
Shoot
You can
something.
shoot it that
Next
way.
time, like, right, you shoot it.
You don't need to ram it. That means the lasers don't work. Like, you're going back to like the
Oh,
Stone Age technology strategies.
yeah,
And
bam
they were
bam.
like, well, they were like even like Ezra says something like, well, I guess it'll take us longer now. Except for the stupid thing is, like, this is the speed of this, the urgency, which even people have been talking about in the comments, that like, okay, we were going to take a spaceship, like we've got to get back on board the Star Destroyer in order to get back to our galaxy. That's what we got to do. Now, never mind, we followed around the turtle people for several days. But what we've got to do is we got to get back. And now our spaceship is blown up. But apparently, if you ride around on some wild dogs, like, you can still get there on time. Like, it even wasn't a problem that the dog things can still get you there on time. It was so that was so dumb. That was so
Well,
dumb.
the thing I was really wondering is, okay, in the last scene of episode 7, we have the ship hovering. And I was like, oh, okay, the ship is just fine. So why didn't they just take that ship to right then and there, take it to the Death Star? Like, why did they decide to crawl on the ground slowly with a caravan of snails? Like, I don't get it. It's like somebody was like high and they wrote this. It was like,
I love what RPG
I know
by
what we're gonna
DBJ
do.
is saying, because we already covered the fact that there was no reason for them to be on the ground anyway. That instead of having the ring come down, Thrawn should have, we're fully loaded. Great. Go into orbit. There was no reason for the Star Destroyer to be there anyway. But even if they do need to bring the ring down, as RPG by DBJ says, why didn't Thrawn move his own cruiser away from the tower by, say, a few hundred meters to the left? Right. Even if you need to dock in, or, in the atmosphere. Right. Oh my God. We need to make sure they can't jump onto this. Yes, exactly. Move a few
It's
hundred meters.
perfectly lined up. Yeah.
It's more
like,
brilliant
I
the other
can't
way.
unsee things like that. Like, it's God. I can't.
I almost want to do skits where we pretend to be writers on the show and we come up and where we improv how they came up with these plot lines.
Oh man. Yeah.
So
That's just insane.
I was going to ask too. We haven't mentioned her yet, actually. But what are y'all's final thoughts on Hera and Jason?
Okay, so I think that Hera in particular, and we can just throw Jason in there. I think everything to do with them could have been erased from the series altogether, and we would be okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
Also, probably Ahsoka could have been erased. I was actually wondering, could we also erase Ahsoka from this series? And would it have all been okay?
Well, she was erased pretty much. There was only 3 episodes with her mainly in it. So all the other episodes.
From a plot point. If Ahsoka didn't exist in the show,
Would anything have happened different?
They still would have got to the other galaxy using the Eye of Sion.
Mhm.
They still would have met Thrawn. Sabine wouldn't be there, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what did Ahsoka really achieve in all this? Getting Sabine?
No,
in
I
the-
was actually wondering. I didn't do deep analysis on this, but I was wondering. I was like, has somebody gone back and actually wondered what Ahsoka actually does?
Let's think about this.
Ahsoka gets the map.
But why?
Right?
Who cares? Because the bad guys are going to go there anyway.
Yeah. So she doesn't make any difference to the story at all. Because if anything, she actually helps to make sure it happens. Because instead of getting the map and destroying it, she actually holds on to it for them for a little while. She's like babysits it.
I just thought of another problem. So the bad guys needed that map to enter their coordinates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they're like, that's why Balon destroys it after, so that no one could follow him. So they needed the map. The bad guys needed the map to set the coordinates for the Eye of Sion, which have nothing to do with the Purgil.
Yeah.
But they built the Eye of Sion, and they're like, man, let's hope someone finds the map. Because we can't program it to go anywhere unless someone finds this and brings it to us. So let's hang around and hope someone does this. And Ahsoka did it. She found the map for them at the last hour.
Yeah.
But it must have taken them years to build the Eye of Sion. This is revolutionary technology. And they went ahead and built it without being able to program it to go anywhere.
Now, my question is, why did they feel the need to build it where they built it, where the Purgils were? Like, why do they need a? I don't know. It's all very wild. But yeah, the story is rocky at this point, because a lot of the, I would call logistics or the minutia details are not matching up to anything that really feels like, oh, this is a great plot piece in the story. Like without this, you're going to get this really amazing thing. It just feels like a lot of this is spinning. We're spinning our wheels now. We just traded places with Ezra.
Traded
now,
places, exactly.
Yeah, we traded
and we
places.
Seem suspiciously okay with it.
Yeah, at the end, like, oh, this is where we're meant to be. Why?
Yeah, but again, my whole thing is Purgils go to this galaxy, so the Eye of Sion, the map, all of that is.
But it all goes to the same place.
Yeah, it's just another version of something that's already there.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
They didn't need it.
I saw this on Reddit about 2 days ago, and I sent it to Doug. I feel like we should bring it up.
Oh.
So this is
about Hera?
General Hera as a Lego figure. Have you seen this Retro Nerd Girl?
Oh, boy. Is it just her butt? Yeah.
There are a lot of memes already out there on Hera.
Yeah, unfortunately. They kept showing her walking to places. And
oh my God, there's tons of ass shots too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And that's kind of like perfect for her character. That's all. She's just walking towards different places, and we're seeing her from behind. What is the story going? We're not focused on the story. We're just following people doing things, and it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So,
well, and what do you guys think about in this show and in many other Disney shows, the portrayal of the New Republic?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like they're the biggest idiots ever. Now in Andor they were okay. Like the Andor took it.
Well, that's that would be because
the new right. Was Empire. Right. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone seemed competent. Even the Imperials seemed somewhat competent.
Oh yeah.
In Andor, in this,
they better be.
Like, what?
They better be.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, the writers in this show always, and I think a Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett or whatever the post Return of the Jedi, they always are portraying the New Republic as either just the same as the Empire or worse, or people that don't make good decisions at all. Like they had that one senator who was not doing good acting.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, we're supposed to believe that Thrawn is a problem, and I was like, oh, dude, like they need to recast this guy.
Well, I think he's a plant because they have, I guess, kind of. As we saw in The Mandalorian, they have a lot of people who are working in the Republic that are actually sympathizers or former Imperial. And so they're kind of keeping everything nice and warm for when Thrawn or whoever is going to come and take the reins. So they're waiting for the Empire to make a rebirth, if you will. And well, so they're sabotaging anything that they see that may look like, hey, people are getting a wind at that that something weird or fishy is going on.
Yeah, I agree. And there's precedent for this. When the Soviet Union fell, Eastern Europe converted or, attempted, several new countries appeared in Eastern Europe and they were made into democracies. But all the administrators were former communists from the Soviet Union. They were the ones who ran the administration before. And so they became part of the administration of a lot of these Eastern Bloc countries. A lot of them were very excited to try democracy and do all this stuff. But and there's been books written about this, that there are concerns that a lot of these administrators had sympathies to run the way that was familiar, which was more central authority and things like that. So you have a precedent for this. I thought that was actually a good idea to add, that you have Imperials that are the best trained to do this. But the way
they're doing it,
it was hysterical. They're like, "Has anyone checked on that?" They're like, "No." It's like, "Oh man, we should have looked into this." Like, you forgot to look into this. Really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way it's being done is a little clunky. But I think I don't mind it so much. What I do mind is sort of this. We're supposed to be on the side of someone like Hera and saying, yeah, like Hera should be able to do all these things that she's doing, but her job is literally to take orders from these guys. If they tell her she cannot go and do this thing, she cannot go do whatever she wants. She has to be, and there should be consequences for it. And so that whole setup felt like if she had actually received consequences for doing what she did, I would have been happy. And then have her somehow get out of it or work her way out of it or something like that. We needed that struggle, but she just like, oh, okay, C-3PO shows up, a nice member berry, and then and which is ridiculous because why
under to the government, like you can get arrested for lying, misrepresenting where you were and why.
Yeah, and why not have, and then maybe, I know the technology is not there, but it would be more believable if somebody said in some room said, oh yes, I just received a hologram from Princess Leia that that she authorized this. A hologram is the best way to do this, not to have a robot representative. That doesn't make sense in this particular case. So it just felt so weird. Like, why didn't they at least, try to work around this situation where I think we're coming upon the storyline in which Luke and Leia are supposed to be more involved with these characters, and that's going to be a problem because either we're going to have to rely on the computer animated actors with face grafts and stuff, or we're going to have to do a lot of trickery with hey, Leia was just in here. You just missed her.
2 minutes ago, you would have seen her. like in the movie Fight Club, where they're always missing each other because it's the same person.
Yes. So I don't know. There, a lot of people feel like this storyline is leading up to Heir to the Empire. And I know that I don't know fully everything to do with the Heir to the Empire books, but I do know that Luke, Leia are heavily involved in it.
They're still main characters.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how they work around this because maybe they just have to come out and say, look, we're casting these characters and having them being played by certain people, or I don't know if they can continue to pull off the CGI thing that they were doing before. It's a quandary, it's a serious problem in Star Wars because they've reached an impasse right now.
Yes.
And it's like they've got to make a choice.
Yeah, so Luke, Leia, Han, Lando, these were the movers and shakers of the rebellion. Luke gets all the credit for destroying the Death Star. Lando destroys the second Death Star. So, he's a general. They should have Leia as the Supreme Chancellor, or maybe given another name, Madam President or whatever. How cool would it be if she's in the decision-making process on some of this stuff? And to your point, with Hera not being punished, or Heath, we talked about this with Star Trek. Captain Kirk doesn't follow the chain of command. It becomes a big. So in Star Trek 3, he breaks command to go save Spock. He goes to the Genesis planet forbidden. He's not supposed to go there. The only reason he's let off the hook is because he saves the world when the whale probe comes in. But even in Star Trek 4, he has to stand trial. Oh God, there's a probe. Maybe it's from the Purple planet. Oh man,
they're linked. It's all linked.
They're everywhere. They're like the monolith. They build world. Anyway, they shoot. Now I lost my train of thought. But they still put Kirk on trial.
Yeah.
They dropped a lot of the charges for mitigating circumstances. And he's like, but disobeying a Starfleet officer, they kept that charge on Kirk. So you could have done this with Hera. How interesting would it have been if they actually arrested her for disobeying orders, or stripped her of her commission until a military tribunal is solved? And how cool would it be if Leia is overseeing this? Like, sorry, General, if Leia agrees, like, sorry, General Hera, the importance of following a chain of command. That's an important thing. Otherwise, being a general doesn't mean anything. And Hera acted like it didn't mean much throughout the whole.
Absolutely.
She acted like she was the captain in charge of Rogue Squadron. That's probably, if she's going to act like that, that's how I would have rewritten her character. I'm like, she can't be a general. She needs to be in charge, the captain in charge of Rogue Squadron, because that's the kind of activity that you expect out of them, whatever. Now, whether or not Rogue Squadron still exists when you've got the New Republic or whatever, that's another thing. But I'm just saying that's what I felt like, that she felt that she was in charge of Rogue Squadron and didn't understand what she was actually supposed to be doing.
I know people who are in charge of an HOA that take their job more seriously. Like, people are relying on you to do a job.
Yeah.
You can't just say, I don't care about that. Then don't run for the office. Don't go there. Do something else
my other big gripe with her, in which I feel like there were no consequences for either, was taking her child in the middle of a possibly dangerous situation. I know it's Star Wars and they have different rules, but it just seemed highly irresponsible to bring her son in the middle of possibly dealing with Jedi or fake Jedi, as they call them. And it's just, it was like, I don't understand what's happening. There's no consequences for anybody doing anything bad. I was hoping that Sabine was going to face consequences, and she didn't face anything. Everybody like, oh yeah, that's okay. That nobody faced any consequences. It's just doesn't feel like the characters are struggling with anything.
Right. Well, and generals, I don't think I've ever seen generals bring their kids with them into the theater of war that they're supposed to be, operating, and honestly, generals have attachés. They have an entourage. They have staffers because their decisions on things are important. They usually have a central office that they work from. There's a lot that goes on with being a general, and these attachés are communicating constantly with other members of the military and command. There's rules of engagement. She made being a general, literally, she was just walking around by herself, unsupervised by any, she has no staffers. I don't know. It's not how generals operate. And she's got her kid with her. It's like, she's like an Avon lady. She's just walking around out there with her kid. And I don't know, not a general.
Yeah. It's no words left. Just not a character. I think she would have been fine to not be in this one. And, we could have seen her at the very end, and people would have had the member berries and went crazy. Oh, it's Hera. Oh my God. and that would have worked. But she didn't have to be in the rest of the movie. I mean, the series. And speaking of movie, this really could have been edited down to a movie, and maybe some of the things that were missing from throughout the episodes wouldn't be so crucial, because it would be a tighter story.
You know what?
I thought that, because especially as I was trying to watch a little bit more, especially in preparation, rewatch some stuff in preparation of this, I was like, all right, I want to rewatch this to make sure that I'm remember. And I was like, okay, skip that, skip forward. There was a lot of stuff I didn't need to watch.
Well, I'm starting to wonder, if you edit out all of Hera's scenes, would anything change? It's making me start to speculate that they soldered the first 3 episodes into the show to lengthen it. Because she doesn't go to the galaxy. She doesn't find the map. She doesn't do much with Sabine. Like, she's not really involved in anything.
Yeah. And you could have just Carson be the one who looks for her. And he finds her, in the water, and that's it.
You're totally right. Yeah. As a general, she's just standing there again. And it's funny.
She's standing there, but we're looking at her from behind.
Yeah. Second unit camera guy, come here. Let's go from this angle. Why? Just shut up.
Just go with it.
I'm the director here. I'm the second unit director.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't think she was really that necessary for it. And there's a lot of memes out there that are making fun of her headgear. I saw one meme that was funny. It goes, "Why do you wear that, Mom?" She's like, "Well, I'm a general." He's like, "I know, but do you fly a World War I biplane?" Because that's what those were for. They didn't have canopies, so they would put those on because you're in the open wind.
Yes.
And she's in way past that era.
That also seems like something that is from the animated era.
It is
that I don't know that people hated on quite as much, but that's very obvious in the live action era. It's like, why do you wear the World War I era goggles when, first of all, you never fly a plane that's it's not, you're in the X-wing and you need to put down your goggles. That you never fly anything and you never use them either, but you always have them on. That's one of the things that doesn't translate well.
So it didn't translate. You know what I would have done to solve it? I would make her use speeder bikes. You could use it on a speeder bike.
If you were flying a speeder bike, then you put those on.
Yeah.
Have her wear that once on a speeder bike, and then make that how she likes to get around.
Just have them on during one scene.
Yeah.
When she's about to ride a speeder bike.
Yes.
That would be your callback to the animated series where she wears them. She puts them on. But then
there's a purpose.
When walking around the Star Cruiser, she does not wear them.
Yeah. Or actually, Zero the Blade just made a point. What if she puts them on and it has a heads-up display like Iron Man?
You're right. Yeah, it could have been a targeting assistant or something
like that. Nice. I like that.
But if they added that, you'd have to explain why the Star Destroyer doesn't have targeting assistance, because they need it.
I had a point about world building here, if we're okay to move to another topic. Which I was trying to study what people liked about this show, because we've been very critical of it here. Obviously, we were positive. Doug, you're positive about it for 2 episodes. We were negative on the first 2 episodes, but we came back because there were some positive elements of it. But then we didn't come back because we didn't think there was anything to talk about. But
I thought were good.
On the whole, we were negative on it. But I was trying to pay attention when I saw online people saying things that they liked about it, because from a storytelling perspective, okay, well then, if there are people who are really digging this, why? And one of the things from a costuming standpoint that stood out to me, I was watching people going, Roman and samurai armor in Star Wars? This is awesome. And I was like, okay, Roman. And so I made note of that. I was like, Roman and samurai armor before I had watched. I was like, okay, let me take note of that. But this is, so I understand why some people might want to see that, but I think this is a very important world building point that I'm not down with. Obviously, there was a Roman influence in Enoch. For some reason, his name is Enoch. To me,
Mhm.
that's also a misfire. I would not
You
have
know
called
that's
him.
Wes Chatham from The Expanse?
And he's always wearing that helmet.
Yeah. So you have a do you guys see The Expanse?
I have not.
I have
It's on my
not
list.
seen it. Yeah.
Oh, he's an awesome character. Anyway, I guess it doesn't matter if no one's seen it, but he's a pretty recognizable
Well,
guy.
no
and they
one
don't
saw
even
him
show
in this
him.
anyway because he's wearing a helmet.
It could
Poor
have been
thing.
anybody, and they disguised the voice on top of that.
Oh man.
But okay, so there was the Roman element to that.
Mhm.
Okay, and then there was also the samurai element to
Big time.
the guys that were out on the planet who later, were trying to kill Sabine briefly.
The Raiders.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
To me, that's not a good thing. Now, to some people, this is going to be overcritical, but to me, it's not. When you're talking about world building, that if you take something from our universe and you immediately transplant it into an alien universe, to me, it immediately triggers me and throws me out of it. I had already talked about what Murdoch or whatever his name was who got killed, right?
Yes.
Everybody was wondering who he was. He was wearing obvious Maximilian plate, like the same kind of fluting, the same kind of style that was absolutely in our world. And that absolutely took me out of it because they had taken something that was in our universe and immediately put it into Star Wars. And I did not think it worked. So they did
They didn't
that.
change it enough.
Right. Then,
Yeah.
right. They didn't change enough. Then they took the Roman cavalry helmets and directly put that on Enoch. See, I saw that and I went, that's so we've thought about the Roman Empire today. Every time I saw that, thinking about the Roman Empire, that caused me to think about the Roman Empire. But it just looked, they're obviously using a Roman cavalry helmet as part of the stormtrooper. And then also when you go to those guys who are the bandits who are trying to beat up Sabine, who later the Shin raises her lightsaber to, right, they are wearing Japanese lamellar that has the same lacing patterns as what we have in the real world. So those were three obvious things that I saw that I know. So apparently some people look at that and go, oh, cool, man, it's Japanese lamellar lacing in Star Wars. But I went, no, that's not cool, because I know exactly where that comes from in Earth history. And for some reason, in a galaxy a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, and then they've gone to another galaxy, and you're still seeing the exact same lacing patterns on, Earth samurai that are on these guys. That doesn't work. It completely threw me out of it. So I have another example. I was talking about this on the Morning Grind with regard to the Riders of Rohan. In other works, there's I forget what RPG manual it is, but it was about the Riders of Rohan. And so they were clearly trying to make them realistic. This happens when they're trying to make something realistic. And they were trying to make it realistic. And the guy on the Riders of Rohan cover is wearing the Sutton Hoo helmet. And it's this helmet right here. This is an Anglo-Saxon helmet. It's from the real world. It's an archaeological find. Yep. Not everyone knows the Sutton Hoo helmet, but if you do know this is an actual archaeological find. And so if you show me a Rider of Rohan from Middle Earth, like on the cover of your book, and he's wearing the Sutton Hoo helmet, that's not making him seem more realistic. It's making him seem very much out of place. Because why would a Rider of Rohan be wearing the Sutton Hoo helmet? Let me tell you who understood this, and that was Peter Jackson for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There was certainly a lot of inspiration for different cultures that came from Earth. Like the Rohirrim are supposed to be like horse Vikings. So but there was nothing that I saw and I understood like the Anglo-Saxon and Viking influence of the Rohirrim when I saw them in that movie, in those movies. But I never actually saw a helmet or a piece of armor or something that it was just transplanted from us to them. If you have time and you know what you're doing, yes, you can absolutely take inspiration from Earth cultures and everything like that. We can't, in some ways, help but not to. I want this to be styled in this way. These guys are going to be Anglo-Saxon horse Vikings. If you're trying to do the Rohirrim, okay, that's your start. if you have enough time and you know what you're doing, and of course, I guess budget too, then you start there and then you get your concept artist going, and then you end up with your own, with a new kind of culture that's based on that, like Peter Jackson did for basically all of the cultures in the trilogy. This is an example when you're immediately taking Roman cavalry masks and you're putting them on stormtroopers, and you're taking the exact way Earth's Japanese samurai lace their armor, and you're putting it on something from a galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and whatever my other example was. To me, that doesn't work. I don't want that. That's a problem.
Well, and Tolkien also said that Middle Earth was supposed to be a mythology of Britain. So he's even has a loose tie to the real world, in the sense that this was supposed to be mythological, and perhaps some of that influence maybe these were the helmets that influenced the artifact. But I think you're exactly right with Star Wars. If it's okay to borrow cultural looks and images to color and flesh in your world, but you have to change them enough to where it's implied, but not directly plagiarized. You can't just plagiarize the culture and put it in there. You have to change it enough. Like Vader's helmet is from the samurai helmet. You know, the samurai had that wraparound part back there to protect the neck and everything. And Vader wears it, but he didn't make it a samurai helmet. He just used it to influence the design.
That's a great example within Star Wars.
Yeah.
That his helmet is clearly samurai influenced. And you can see that, especially once it's brought up to you and this kind of influence. But Darth Vader is not wearing a samurai helmet.
Because they changed it.
But my thing too is that this is where, you know, a lot of people are kind of thinking like this could lead to the idea or the idea that some of Star Wars may eventually get to be part of Earth or whatever, or Earth maybe, which is a terrible idea.
It is a terrible idea.
Really, not only that, but what happened to creativity? You know?
Oh man, it's like dying. It's like an art form that is lost.
Yeah, look, you're supposed to use the things in the past to help you a little bit, and don't copy exactly what they do. Change it. You're supposed to make it different. Why are they getting things exactly? Trying to make it look exactly like.
I mean, that's almost like putting Egyptian hieroglyphics in the temple in the background. You know, they're like, well, that's what our temples look like. But
isn't it cool that there's Egyptian stuff here? I mean, a few people apparently, will go, yeah, my God, there was like Egyptian hieroglyphics on there.
Cool.
A few people will think that, apparently, but that's not what I would. I think is cool. That's
George Lucas wouldn't do that either. He would synthesize different influences and make something new with it. You know, Obi-Wan Kenobi. These sound like samurai names. You know, they have swords, but they're made of energy, so they're lightsaber, and they have colors. So now they're lightsabers. Now it's something totally new.
Because, like, if you get an inspiration from something, it's almost like the best way to do it would be to get two inspirations and warp them into one, or two or three inspirations and kind of morph them into one.
It's the alchemy of creativity.
Yeah, and it helps to, like, people can say, oh, okay, that's a lot like this, and you can still go into a lot of the theories that, you know, people like to go into, but at the same time there is this uniqueness about it all. And so I do feel I'm with you with that. I feel like I did like the costuming and a lot of the things, but I feel in general, and this is a big statement. Yeah, and
here we go.
And we get it. It starts here. The name of the last episode was help me out. The Jedi.
The last episode was the Jedi.
The witch in the wardrobe or something. The warlord.
Yeah, which is of course a play on the book,
Narnia.
right? Narnia. And there is a lot of influence, and I'm noticing from not only just Narnia, but Lord of the Rings, um,
The Eye of Sion.
and yeah, that the whole thing for like there's a whole bunch of connections to the Lord of the Rings in this, including Ahsoka the White.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's right.
yeah, a big time. And also Shakespeare or the classics, where we're dealing with the three witches um, and their whole thing. Now, if we even go back to the witches on Dathomir, they were set up similarly, but they did not have that three witch thing set up. And you know what? Even these three witches have the same names as the ones that's used in antiquity. It's really ridiculous. Like they changed it like somewhat a little bit. So a lot of this is like bringing back this kind of old school. I mean, wouldn't be surprised to see a Minotaur in any of the Star Wars or or mermaids or something like that. It's just like where the lore is feeling like human lore,
Well,
like
even
or
Captain
Earth lore.
Enoch is a biblical reference. Like, wasn't there the Book of Enoch?
Which is why
that
I would not have called him Enoch.
Right. There was a Book of Enoch, which is not considered canon, but it's out there and it has survived. You can look it up. You can Google it, Book of Enoch. So that's a biblical reference, even that, to your point, probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it should not. I think if we can get more original stuff instead of a retread of witches, like even during the whole scene of the zombies, we've got like the violins playing for during that scene, which I felt was very much,
Eastern
like we were.
European Dracula.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, it's cool. I like it, but I don't think that Star Wars is the proper venue for this. So I know maybe that's super super critical, and we're getting into the super super critical of this. But I'm sorry, it doesn't fit in Star Wars.
Well, I think you're completely right. And one of my early notes was the space whales, zombie stormtroopers, the Enoch mask, and what was the other one? Witches. These might be off-brand enough that they're really moving out of Star Wars and into something else. I'll just say this: maybe they'll pull it off. I doubt it, because I remember feeling that way about the prequels when I first saw the prequels. I was like, "What is this? This is so different than Star Wars. It doesn't feel like Star Wars." And yet, that world did get developed, and now the prequel era is almost more popular than the original trilogy era. So it is possible to change the brand and have it work, but I have some concerns about it.
Yeah. And as far as maybe making this work in a story, it didn't pull that off. And so if the series could have worked very heavily with developing the characters to the point where you actually like are curious about what happens to these characters by the end. And right now, I'll say on the most part, there's a certain section of people who are loving everything. They love it. They love it, love it, love it. And then there's a group of people who are like, I'm done with Star Wars, never watching it again. And I think we kind of fit into the group of like, that was underwhelming. But we're willing to kind of see what happens in the future. I mean, with much trepidation. We're not really like jumping up and down and saying, "Wow, this is going to be fantastic! Can't wait for that movie to come out one day," or season 2 of this, because it did not tie up all the loose ends. There's still a lot of loose ends hanging, and it did have some moments of spectacle, and they did deliver on some of the questions that we had, but there's too many loose ends still, you know.
Well, they and this I was going to mention in your comment, Heath, also about just direct ripoffs. They had these spaceships that looked like P-51 World War II airplanes.
They had that too.
Almost unmistakable. The shape of it, like I couldn't get it out of my head that
Yes.
it was like World War II footage in space.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did do some things right. I do feel like there is a plan. I feel like they're not executing it very well, but there does seem to be a trajectory here.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the Anakin and Ahsoka scenes. I thought Ariana Greenblatt was so good. If they announced tomorrow that they were going to have a Hayden Christensen, Ariana Greenblatt 3-film trilogy of the Clone Wars, I would be ready to go. Like, I'll just go right for that. They probably won't, but if they announce that, I would be in, like, big time. I would love to see a whole trilogy, like because I feel like that trilogy is what the prequels should have been almost.
Right. Yeah.
So it would, and they have the actors and the people, and I thought Ariana Greenblatt was almost, and I like Rosario Dawson.
Yeah,
I thought she was almost a better Ahsoka than Rosario Dawson, because her Ahsoka had questions and problems and moments and good fight choreography, and she was she was young enough to pull it off. So I don't know, like, they got that right. I thought they did Anakin well. They did not do Anakin well in Kenobi. It's almost like they just threw him in there.
I didn't think they did Anakin well in the prequels.
Poor Anakin.
He has grown on me, though. But they gave him meaningful dialogue, in my opinion, in Ahsoka. So, you know, there are. I was happy to see lightsabers back in the mix, and Force users and blocking lasers. There was a Star Wars feel to it.
Yes.
So, like, and am I going to watch season 2? They haven't announced it yet, but I'm sure they will. Yes, I will. I'll watch season 2. Hopefully I'll like it.
Yeah. It's a tough one. It's a tough one because I want to see it too. But I'm like still feeling those feelings of disappointment that they really didn't land the plane with me for this season. As far as it being Star Wars enough, there was a lot of Star Warsy elements, like lots of pew pews, lots of saber fights. There were, member berries. But as far as there was a lot of other elements brought into, like what we were talking about, this Lord of the Rings type of story blending that they've been doing for years, because they started way back in Clone Wars, introducing some of these story elements, and they're just paying it off now, kind of. But it's not for anyone coming in off the street and watching this. You're just lost. Like I was saying, at the end scene with Balin, it's almost impossible for you to know that is supposed to be the representation of the Mortis gods, that he's standing on. The father, the son is right next to him, and the daughter is right next to the father, but her head is removed.
Oh.
And so and it's like, it's really like there's no indication to people. Like, I feel bad for anyone watching this fresh, because they're just not understanding what that's supposed to mean. And Balin is looking off, and there's a star in the beyond, and I'm like, this is all relating back to Clone Wars. And it's like, how are people supposed to know that?
Well, and I think when you introduce a big new idea, you need to take time with it. Like Clone Wars had the time, and they spent the time developing the Witches of Dathomir, for example, or even Purgil. So it was easier to kind of go with it. And Heath, we talked about this even with Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. they didn't just bring Spock back. They spent an entire film to get him back. And even then his personality was a little bit different, which was comical in Star Trek 4. But they took their time with it. Here they're like, oh yeah, there's zombie stormtroopers, and there's a guy with a gold face, and there's space whales, and it's like, whoa.
So true.
It's so fast. I don't know if I'm buying this yet. Like, I don't feel, I haven't settled into this in the Star Wars universe. And now that you mention it too, even like the wolves they were riding, there was a lot of that stuff that I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So it's a little too on the nose instead of it being different, or adapted.
I'm still unclear on how I feel about that as well. I forgot to write that down as a note, but I had meant to mention it, that there's, when I was watching it, there's clearly a lot of like King Arthur here. And it obviously that's deliberate. We've got a very Arthurian influence. We're talking about the influence of the armor and all of this and on the surface, I suppose I'm not against that, because, if you're talking about Jedi Knights and things like that, maybe we could have even had more of that.
Yeah.
This is a very different feel from things I've seen before in Star Wars. And because it's not the case that everything has to slavishly adhere to what had become before it. So if we're having new inspirations, new influences on something, that isn't necessarily bad. But this one is so this one is so different in its feel like that, and so obvious in its feel like that. I'm still processing how I feel about it. Well, and I like that theme. I mean, personally, I love obviously the medieval theme. King Arthur is a theme. So, I mean, personally, I'm biased to kind of like that. Like, okay, we're bringing that into Star Wars. I'm kind of biased toward liking it, but I'm still processing how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Well, being George Lucas is not easy to synthesize all these things, to bring them together, to create something that's familiar and yet new. And it's not easy. And so you're seeing people who are not George Lucas attempt to do this. And you're seeing that it's not the same. And in my opinion, the things that are the most interesting about the story still stem from the main Star Wars lore. Even the stuff from the Clone Wars, by the way, from 2008 to 2012, when it was canceled, Clone Wars was the last project George Lucas was personally involved in. Him and Filoni directly worked on it. Only season 7 was a Disney Star Wars thing. Like Disney Filoni. And they did some really good stuff. Some of the last episodes of season 7 in the Clone Wars are some of the best out there. And that was done with Disney. But now you're seeing, so I'm saying the Clone Wars aspects of Ahsoka are cool, but that still stemmed from George Lucas's ideas. And Anakin coming back, I loved it. Still came from George Lucas's ideas. So the lightsabers, the blocking, all that still came from George Lucas's ideas. When you see people go, I'm going to do something on my own. How about zombie stormtroopers? And it's like, no. Oh,
they wrote a book. They wrote a book about that too.
What?
There was a book of I think it's called Death Troopers or something to that.
Well, Death Troopers came from Rogue One. These are night troopers.
I think there is a book that was written about zombie troopers.
Really?
I forgot the name of it. Oh my god, I'm sorry. But there is a book.
They took the whole book to introduce the idea, right?
But I don't know. I'm not sure if it's even connected to. It's not canonical part of the canon. I think it's one of those books that's out there, but it was sort of like a nod to the books that this was in the film. But
Shane still loves the crab people.
Crab.
The hermit crab.
RNG is right. BGD says it's the Red Harvest Death Troopers.
Death Trooper. That's what I thought I saw as a title.
Yeah, Dark Trooper is something else. Yeah, Dark Trooper is something else. So Death Trooper maybe. Yeah.
Well, Death Troopers aren't those the black bodyguard troopers from Rogue One?
No, I think isn't that Dark Trooper?
No, the Dark Troopers I thought were the robots.
Well, no.
Oh,
but
okay. No, you're right. There's something else. Okay, hang on. Let me look this up.
It's just a book. It's not canonical to the story.
So it might have the title Death Trooper.
Yeah. I mean that's
okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
the thing about these ideas, they are cool. I don't mind them because I'm kind of open with that, um, having those things be there and be a part of Star Wars, even though it's not typically what you expect from Star Wars. But what I really would have loved was more explanation of what these things are, the lore behind them, and you need exposition that doesn't feel like a classroom
Yeah,
exposition.
you're right.
You need the why to weave that into dialogue. We need, like, even if it was a temple wall where she's reading and she's explaining what the purgles are, and why, what they were used for, like anything that can, any piece of the story where you can actually create the lore, and that's the story behind these weird things that occur. Not
Yes.
just like, not just yeah, here, well, now we've got troopers with red stripes. Well, why are they wearing red stripes? Like, what is the red fabric for, and what are they holding together? And why can't they just use they were using metal before, why can't they just use metal for the whole thing? Why?
Yeah. No, well, I did hear on Star Wars Theories channel that there is a Japanese art form of when
Yes.
things chip that you fill it with gold.
Oh,
And
Mhm.
right.
over
I
time,
looked that
the
up.
whole thing ends up as gold. So there's a thing there.
Yeah, it is a special art form, and if something that's broken, you fill it in with a metal, and usually it's gold, and it's, so it makes like your kitchen mug that you just broke now become like priceless because you've
Kinjit.
got
Oh,
all this
I was just about to get there. It's called Kinjit's Kintsugi.
Oh,
Kintsugi.
kintsugi.
wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Kintsugi.
it's
It's the
wonderful.
art
It's
of
so
repairing
beautiful.
broken pottery by mending the breakage with a lacquer duster mixed with gold, silver, or platinum. So yes,
Hmm.
that's what
Oh,
it
it's
is.
about repairing something to make it more beautiful for having been broken.
Yes,
Exactly.
Brilliant.
yes,
Because it's been
yes.
broken, you
Isn't
repair
it,
it with
that's nice?
the metal, and then it becomes it's an addition to it then.
That's brilliant. But
Yeah.
why on Stormtrooper armor? To be and I'm not. I don't want to knock it too much because I kind of like it. I kind of
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
But that would seem an odd place because, by the way, gold is not good for armor. It's a very soft metal, and not effective. That's why steel and all these other ones, you don't see gold armor anywhere. You might
Yeah,
have gold
that's a
inlays,
great
like,
point. I knew exactly what they were
filigree.
going for. I didn't know the name of it, the Kintsugi. I looked it up after that, but I knew what they were going for. Oh, they're looking for the repair of the armor. But that's a great point, that making it gold, it should have been some other metal. That's
Well, and if the idea is to take an ordinary object and make it into something beautiful for breaking, that doesn't make sense for armor though. And
Yeah.
stormtroopers, you don't want
It
art.
doesn't make,
What are
yeah.
we trying to turn them into pieces of art?
Yeah.
They're
And
stormtroopers.
the thing is that it's just to keep the armor all in place. It's not for the beautifying of it. It's not for the making it an invaluable piece of art. And so they've taken something that's cool and they've used it for something stupid. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and like, that's not noble. Like, and so it's kind of like
Yeah.
a wild thing.
That's a
I don't
good
know.
point. That the process has a nobility to it.
Yeah.
And the militaries are utilitarian. There's not a beautification mentality or a cultural relevancy to that.
Also, who's
Interesting.
doing this? Who's digging up all this these minerals and smelting it down? And I'm just like, how are these guys surviving? And that would have been really interesting to figure out. Like, what is their daily life like, and what is really going on underneath those helmets? Like, what are they really? Are they really people underneath there?
Well,
So-
if they are zombies, man,
Well-
that Star Destroyer would have some stink to it.
Well,
Yeah.
I was looking up, so the undead troopers, because I saw the comments going by, so I was looking that up. Yes, so apparently the undead troopers come from a book, Death Troopers, that was
You were right.
released in 2009 by Joe Schreiber, that takes place about a year before A New Hope. But then Red Harvest, we saw that in the comments as well. A prequel to that story called Red Harvest was released in 2010.
Ooh.
So, okay. So I
Interesting.
guess that's where it comes from. But I was going to say that that's one of the two things. A lot of people had said, oh my God, do we have zombie stormtroopers in here earlier? But I had written down that as far as on the positive side of the last episode, there wasn't a lot, but there was, I would say there were two things. The first is the emergence of the undead stormtroopers. I mean, some people had guessed it earlier, but whatever. But like, okay, we're going to have undead stormtroopers here. That was something that is unexpected. Some people had said you had seen the dead come back to life in Clone Wars or something, but like I hadn't seen those. So if you're just following the live action Star Wars, then having these stormtroopers come back to life as the undead is new, right? Yeah. So I give that props. It wasn't as significant as it needed to be. I mean, that needed to be what captured the heroes, or something that, oh my God, right. We never seen it. So that's what that needed. It was underused, completely underused. But the general shock when they first stood up, I was like, oh, well, that's different. I hadn't seen that in Star Wars before. Oh my God, we got zombies. They didn't pay off. We talked about it seems like that's a recurrent theme. We don't pay off what comes up. But that was a cool thing. I was like, oh, there's something new in Star Wars. How about that? Undead stormtroopers. You're not gonna be able to defeat them. Oh, actually, but it's actually good. But you're not gonna be able to defeat them. But that idea to me was a positive in that episode. And then also I thought when Thrawn is trying to escape, is about to jump into hyperspace and escape, and Ahsoka is coming up on her ship. Coming up in her ship, it's about to come up. I was like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. She's going to landing claw attached to the Star Destroyer, which is going to allow them to jump and all get back to the main galaxy. I knew that was where it was going. So to their credit, it was not. That they didn't, and so it was a surprise that they did actually strand Ahsoka and the whole team over in the galaxy. Like they didn't actually care they were stranded, as it turns out. They were still as stoic. It's like, well, all right. Well, they didn't care. But to their credit, I was surprised by that because I was completely going, oh my God, they got to make another reference within Star Wars to another thing in Star Wars. She's about to do the landing claw attached to the Star Destroyer, and that's how they're getting home. I knew it. And it wasn't true. So I have to give them credit for that, at least. Those are the two things: undead stormtroopers and not and stranding Ahsoka. Those were two things that I thought were positive. Those BGD says those troopers don't count. They were really dead because they were run through with lightsabers.
They'll be fine. You don't even need magic for that. Take it off.
Lightsabers, no problem.
They needed. If you were going to strand Ahsoka when it doesn't work, you need to see it on their face, the emotion that, oh my God, we're lost.
Yeah, some panic or something. Something like,
yes,
oh my God.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, nobody panics.
The director should be like, hey, you just got stranded on in a galaxy that's not even, there's no way back. Like there should be a real sense of isolation and fear, regret and sense of loss that you're not going to see all of the people you grew up with. Like you're cut off forever now. Like, direct them to capture some of that reality.
Oh no, they're just fine. They're hanging out with the snail people now.
Sweet. I mean, those snail people must be really good company because Ezra didn't care. No one cared.
What if the snail people have them under a spell?
Wow, like witch turtles. There's a synthesis of ideas you can mix together and create something new. Witch turtles. The original Force users.
Yeah, they were the real ones. This was their master plan. The whole thing.
They manipulated Thrawn. Yeah, that'd be great.
If we have a couple of more minutes, I wanted us to address a couple of things that I thought did actually come up on TikTok that I thought were interesting questions to answer. Because this came up as a result of Doug talking about, and I was talking about too, but Doug was articulating the idea about we should start on action with Thrawn as a threat, showing up, blowing stuff up, initial in this, oh my God. And he's just this, tactical wizard who gets his objective. The the New Republic is thrown into chaos because, oh my God, what just happened? And then they can't find him. And then, oh my God, he shows up again and blows something else up. And he's so amazing. We got and start with some real threat, with Thrawn. So this is John Dunn on TikTok. This is an interesting rebuttal to this. He says the need for immediate gratification is ridiculous. Endgame would have absolutely slapped if it was the first Avengers movie. Let things mature. Okay, so that's an interesting point. I don't think, though, that what we were arguing for was instant gratification.
No,
not at all.
So
I want to
give that to us.
Well, no, all I was saying is you're establishing conflict and the nature of the conflict going forward. So if you had Thrawn come in from hyperspace to a Republic shipyard, start, opening his batteries, it's a major attack. The New Republic, scramble its fighter. The X-Wings come up or whatever, maybe a new ship there. They come up, engage, and then maybe, Thrawn brings in 2 ships and cuts them up in a pincer movement, knocks out the response of the New Republic, ends up, aerial bombarding the thing and blows up, decades worth of shipbuilding that they're trying to do on a shipyard or something. And then and then maybe even captures hostages and then gets out of there. No one knows. And while the New Republic is trying to solve this, like, look, he did this. He knew how to handle this. We're dealing with someone who has tactical abilities that might exceed our best generals in the New Republic. I would introduce Lando Calrissian right here. He's a general. Get get some of the old characters in there. These are the best fighters the New Republic has after Return of the Jedi. These are the guys that are going to try to fight Thrawn. We're going to have to figure out where Thrawn's coming from. What's his next target? We're going to have to figure this out because this is a serious threat. If he does this guerrilla-style attack with the Imperial Remnant, we don't have an answer for it. Now you've got conflict. You've got 2 sides fighting. The New Republic is on its back heels. And they're going to have to solve this. And Thrawn is an immediate threat. And then you could bring Ahsoka into this. What does she say? I mean, to me, if you're going to go there, you are sowing the seeds of the sequel trilogy. But in my opinion, not the one that was made, the one that we should be going to instead. That's why I got so excited with episode 5 in Ahsoka, because they seem to be revisiting the central questions of what went wrong with the old Republic and the old Jedi Order that were destroyed by the Empire. So if you're going to create a new Republic or a new Jedi Order, you have to go back and revisit those central questions of what went wrong in the prequels so that it doesn't happen again. And that's what I'd be working on in this show. I'd be working on building that up, answering those questions. Who's going to answer the questions for the Jedi Order? Well, Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, and maybe a couple others that are still out there that are trying to bring back the Jedi Order. Who's going to answer the questions about what the New Republic is going to do? Freaking Leia Organa.
Yeah, she's there.
Star Wars in 1977 started not with Luke's story. It started in the middle of Leia's story. Yeah. The opening scene is Leia escaping Darth Vader with the stolen Death Star plans. She's trying to save the Rebel Alliance. She's trying to destroy the Death Star. It's her plan to bring down the Empire, and she gets caught in that opening scene. I want to see her answer the question. Now that the Empire is gone, I want to see Princess Leia say, what are we going to do with the New Republic? I want to see her lead it. And it shouldn't be a bunch of incompetent dopes who forget to check on the Imperial shipyards. Oh, we forgot. Like it's a room in a house that no one forgot. We forgot to clean and vacuum in there. Like they treat it like it's a forgotten chore, but it's a major implication. I would like to see her as the Supreme Chancellor of the New Republic in the Imperial or in the Senate from the prequels, stating her vision for what the New Republic is going to do differently. And I would like to see, if you're going to have Hera as a general, have them behaving appropriately, responding to answering Princess Leia's new rally call for the New Republic. Anyway, I could go on a tangent about this, but that's what I would do. I would start with a real threat. And then also, what if it's systems like we don't want to join the New Republic? Does Leia send in the military? Because that's what the Empire would do. Or does she just let him go and let all these systems, fade out of the sphere of the New Republic? Or if there's a big conflict on a major planet, maybe because Thrawn attacked and the Republic couldn't save him, like, you guys aren't helping us. You're not a good defense. What's the advantage of being in the New Republic if you can't protect our planet from an attack from Thrawn?
Yeah.
And then have Leia say, Luke, will you go in with the Jedi? And he's like, no, the Jedi became soldiers and that's what destroyed them. So he refuses to help. And then let's say the planet gets wiped out again. Like, Luke, you didn't help us. Like, so not having Jedi was a problem, but not having them help is also a problem. Have them deal with these problems that were never fixed by the prequels, and now they're trying to address them and show the struggle that this would be trying to solve the conflicts. And I think we talked about it last time. Should we let attachments into the Jedi Order?
Yeah.
This is what I would be focusing on. And Ahsoka's a great character to do it because she was there in the Clone Wars. Luke wasn't.
Yeah. And the thing is that whether you love the current path of Star Wars or not, a lot of these shows have set up this, the New Republic in a specific way that we know that they've already been infiltrated. We know that there are space pirates out there that are basically former loyalists to the Empire, and they're working undercover. And we know that Thrawn's right-hand man is out there too, waiting for him, still holding the flag for him. And also there's the Emperor's got a guy out there who's working exclusively on cloning. So there's certain things that they've already set up. Mandalorian 2 did a lot of the heavy lifting. We got a little bit of it in this show. And let that start to really play out. And maybe I'm not sure if they need an Ahsoka 2 or the season 2, or they need another show to completely demonstrate this, but they need something that really feels like Thrawn is wrecking stuff up, and he's got help, and he's got help, and maybe underneath that there could be another faction of people who are like, we don't quite believe everything, want to side with Thrawn and doing things his way, and maybe that's sort of the beginning of the new order. And so there needs to be start to shape up some of these factions we know will exist, but at this time it just feels like we're trying to figure out, okay, the Star Wars universe looks like this now, and we know what the sequels look like. How are they going to make that transition to the two? And really playing that out with conflict is going to do that. Conflict is number one. That is a story, right? Yeah. Conflict. You have to have that. So why not start off your show or your program with the bad guy being the baddiest that he can ever be? That's how Star Wars started with Darth Vader walking in through the hallway and kicking butt, Yes. That's how you do it. The first thing we saw was a Death Star, and it made people gasp in the theaters. And so we need that kind of thing from Thrawn. And whether it's like maybe they can do it where it's like maybe 5 years later or something, where Thrawn is able to gain some momentum and some loyalty amongst the people. And there's whispers of Thrawn being here, but he's quiet, he doesn't want to give a tip off where he is. And like really like the first thing you see, boom, attack,
Man, well, and you know what? You just got my creative wheels spinning. You could have restore the Empire be some underground rally cry. What if a planet doesn't recognize the new government in the New Republic? They refuse to recognize it. What if you end the season with a planet swearing loyalty to the new Empire, or it's a liberation? They look at it as a liberation of the Empire instead of this upstart New Republic. It'd be cool is you have one planet throw off the yoke of the New Republic, and then have Leia attempt to put down what would be an insurgency, a rebellion against the New Republic. have her put it down in a very imperial way, using something that looks like AT-ATs, and then have Thrawn be like, now you are the Empire. You've taken the bait. I've got you. Where he tricks the New Republic into behaving like the Empire. That would be great. Because what do? Do you not use military force? Are you a pacifist government? What do you do if someone attacks you or attacks a planet that you're supposed to protect? I would have Thrawn exploit all of this and make him understand how to defeat Leia's New Republic. And I would have Leia be a character in this. 100%.
Somehow they've got to put her back into the mix and figure out, because going forward, they need those characters. I don't see them this whole toying around and having C-3PO show up on Leia's behalf. Like, Leia said, deploy 5 ships. Ooh, you're like, I don't think that's gonna work. you need Leia in the mix.
I want Leia heading the political debate. What do we do as a New Republic? And show her competently. I would have Lando be the general. He's General Calrissian. Have General Calrissian be the New Republic's answer to Thrawn, and have him backpedaling until he gets a win. Maybe he does get some victories against his forces. Have Lando spearhead the military side of it, and then have Luke and Ahsoka Tano figuring out how to bring back the Jedi Order. I mean, you could use the old characters, use the new characters, and bring in Thrawn as a major threat to the New Republic, exploiting it in its infancy. Man, you could do so much with it, and they didn't do any of this.
And the thing is that everything you're talking about can still exist within the plans for as the sequels can be just what they are. It preserves them just fine. For anybody who's tied to them in some way, which I think Disney really wants the sequels to matter in the future. But I think it will be just fine because you have Thrawn, and I think I'm not sure, but I think you've got about 20 years because Ben is about 5 years old about now in the story. And I'm not sure how old he is I think he'll be 20. So you got maybe about 15 years to play around with these characters and what happens. So
you're right, actually.
Because there's time to do that and still have everything be just like the New Order and the New Republic, all that happen the way it is in the sequels. I'm not so fan of the sequels, but I'm not one of those people who are like retcon it. But just I think it should have been. It's okay to have them just where they are. They're harmless now.
I would try to figure out a way to keep the sequels by splitting the timeline somehow and just be like, look, this happened, but some cosmic event happened. I think we talked about this in the World Between Worlds, where there's a divergence and then this other reality moves forward. And
you're saying change the sequels into something else.
Yeah, I'm saying use this story to actually do the sequel trilogy correctly. And then, I agree with you. I don't think Disney would get rid of their sequel trilogy, but I think if you could figure out a way, I'd use the Faraway Galaxy to reset the timeline somehow, keeping the sequel trilogy preserved for those who like it. And someone brought this up, and I totally agree. What about all the people that worked on those movies? Just retconning it out of existence is really an insult to the artistic efforts made by those people.
I agree.
So, figure out a way to keep that somehow preserved for the people who like it without erasing it, but then just open up this other path that we just start moving down with these characters. You still, I think I would recast Leia. I would try to bring back Billy D. Williams for General Calrissian. I think he should have a central role in the New Republic. And I think
he might be. I'm not sure if he's physically up for it though.
Well, then I'd recast him, but because you could get away with that. It would suck because Billy D. Williams has a certain charm and charisma about him that's very distinctive for Billy D. Williams. Yeah. So he'd be hard to replace.
There was the young man who played him in Solo.
Glover?
Yes, who is also working on a movie. of his character, and I suppose they're gonna go into like, how he became the leader of Cloud City or something, and probably go through that adventure. But I don't see anything wrong with giving him a little older makeup and putting him in that spot. I mean, they could just give him like some gray hair and that I think so. I think that might work.
You know what? That's a brilliant idea because he is part of Star Wars canon from the movie Solo. So if you were going to replace General Calrissian with an older, you can even probably deep fake some of the aging. Give him a white beard, white hair. Give him a general's uniform. Man, I think all Star Wars fans would take Donald Glover's aged General Calrissian of the New Republic. That would be awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think I would take Carrie Fisher's daughter was in the sequel trilogies. I would take her to reprise the role of older Supreme Chancellor Organa. I doubt you'll get Harrison Ford back. But I think you could recap. You might even get Mark Hamill to come back. He was pretty upset with Luke in the sequel trilogy. So he might be very willing to come back and do Luke again with Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka Tano as they try to rebuild the Order. And in this one, Ahsoka Tano is the Elder. Can you imagine scenes with Luke and Ahsoka Tano, and there's the Force ghosts of like Qui-Gon and Yoda, and they're trying to quarterback this thing.
And hey, let's just throw Anakin in there too.
And Anakin, he's already in the show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would have to be very sparing with them, but one scene with all of them united would go viral. I mean, people would watch.
Yeah, and I think Ewan McGregor would be perfect to just slide in there.
Oh my God, how cool would that be? A Ewan McGregor Force Ghost?
Yes. Oh my God, I want it.
That'd be so cool, man. So that's what I'm saying. Like all these ideas are sitting there. They're not. It's not rocket science. But when you start to think about it, there's all these opportunities, and it's like they went with the sequel trilogy, this they're going to another galaxy, and they're wasting time with all of the like finding Thrawn and Turtle people. It's like, what are you guys doing with this great franchise?
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
One thing I was saying about the sequels, just I'm going to briefly talk about it. I want to stray from this topic, but I thought the sequel trilogy should have happened further along in time, like maybe like 100 years into the future, because after that last movie, after the Battle of Yavin, they pretty much beat the Empire, and all was won, right?
Oh, Battle of Endor. Yeah,
the Battle of Endor. It should have continued on being peaceful for at least another 100 years, until like several generations along. And so my thought would have been like, hey, do a sequel further along in time, where it gives you the chance to build up some of the anger and animosity that you might have, to build up like a completely like, hey, this government sucks, you can't, like, they've just been in power. So it's kind of, I thought it would have been a better idea to put it further into the future.
I think that's a good idea too, but at that point, it's not really a sequel trilogy, but a new trilogy.
Yes,
you'd be rebooting the franchise with a new era, all new characters, really. And I think that's smart, because it would have given Disney the freedom to get away from the Lucas canon that they are trying so desperately to do.
Yes. I mean, this way you don't have to depend. Luke, Leia, and Han, their reputations are preserved, right? And they become legends. They are the legend of Luke Skywalker. And so it's like more special than what we ended up with. Where we have sort of the fall from grace for his character. And so it's like further along in the future, we keep going back. We keep going back and like teasing out little story plots, but I would never see us like go forward because we should be going further into the future with this story, and go to the not just the next generation up from Luke, but further, way further. You know.
Yeah. I think they should have done the sequel trilogy to finish the Luke, Leia, and Han story. But I think that you have a good idea too, where you fast forward and just reset completely into a new era.
Yeah.
And I think I even mentioned I thought it would be cool to do one way like 900 years in the past.
Yes. Yes.
Like the early Force users and how they came about and how
Yeah.
they,
I thought they were working on something like that.
What's that?
I thought they were working on something like this because, yeah, I'm totally in for watching a movie about an army of Sith.
I mean, what was the Sith like before the rule of two? I mean,
Yes.
can you imagine a whole bunch of those guys like in Attack? You remember Attack of the Clones? The Jedi come in like in a big thing fighting battle droid. Like, what if the Sith did that? Like, that'd be. Can you imagine them like overrunning like an entire like city or like a planet government? Like, it'd be really fun to work on these things. But
Yeah.
But I agree with you. You said it. The line of the night. Where is the creativity? Where did it go? What's it doing? Why are they putting the stuff out there that they are putting out? Because it doesn't take much to really get excited about ideas in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like all the things that we've talked about, the ideas of places that they could go, there's still a lot of opportunities. You know, that's probably why I haven't fully given up on the franchise completely.
I haven't either.
And but I feel like this is in particular Ahsoka was a squandered opportunity to get us closer to these characters, because even though we did experience arcs from a lot of the characters, like Ahsoka and Sabine in particular, we didn't really I didn't fall in love with these characters, you know?
Correct. I
And
didn't either.
yeah, and a lot of people were waiting for that, just the right amount of storytelling to get to that point. They wanted to fall in love with these characters, and for Sabine, I mostly hated the character until the last episode. I was like, oh, okay, finally she does something that's good. You know, where by staying with her master and not leaving her to die pretty much. And so I was like, oh, finally we have something good from the character in episode 8 in the last 5 minutes. So that was really sad that it took that long. And then we have this, unveiling of all of these secrets that should have been revealed to us much sooner. And it was it's very depressing that did not happen, but at least there was an arc in somewhere in the place. This is teaching me that the story structure of this this series is just completely topsy-turvy and just like Swiss cheese. It's missing important parts of it, but without the flavor of Swiss cheese, imagine.
Well, and that's the hard, storytelling's not easy. You have to think that you can't have Swiss cheese. Like I said, when I'm writing the Theodora book, I take it before my writers group. And, we're all at different levels as writers and no one's a master, you never master writing. You're just always at different levels and, you're always learning, there's always things that someone's going to teach you about writing. And I love passing on things that someone taught me. I love passing those on to other writers because I know how useful they were. But even in those groups, if I'm writing a chapter, I submit it and they will read it and they will tell me, they'll spot all sorts of problems. And I'm like, ooh, I didn't think of that. That's right. And I'll rewrite it. I'm like, now it's good. And I've even run the story multiple times to make sure that I get it right. And it's just so evident that they're not doing that. And I'm like,
absolutely.
I don't really know if you're doing writing right if you're not getting feedback from other writers, because you have blind spots and they're going to help you see them.
I didn't get to give my answer to the person on TikTok. I wanted to say that.
Oh.
I wanted to go back to that.
Uh-oh.
So the question that the person had said, and you guys touched on a couple of things, but the question that was asked was regarding whether or not we should have started with an attack by Thrawn on something that started on action and establishing Thrawn as a threat. The person on TikTok had asked, the need for immediate gratification is ridiculous. Endgame would have been absolutely slapped if it was the first Avengers movie. Let things mature. And I had two responses to this. And the first was that, okay, first of all, immediate gratification is not what I'm after. It is okay for something to mature. And it's also okay for a story to have a slow burn. If you're going to open, you may still want to open on action, even if you're going to execute a slow burn. But in principle, there's nothing wrong with a slow burn on a story. But one of the things that we were critiquing this in the context of was Star Wars over the past 10 years. That if you're bringing out this show, do not start with some kind of slow burn. You really need to grab people by the collar from the start of this. This is not the time to go. Now, after everything we've seen through Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian season 3 and Obi-Wan Kenobi and all of that, let's just really start with something slow and mellow. That's not the right answer. The answer in that context is however the show needs to start. You need to start with grabbing people by the collar and throwing them into it and making them go, wow, I got to watch this. So that's one answer to that. So that's one answer. That's not immediate gratification. That is hooking people, right, exactly, and trying to bring them into the show. But then also, Endgame is not the appropriate analogy, because that would be like saying, you're right, that don't start Star Wars with Return of the Jedi. No, right. Yeah, you start at Return of the Jedi with the original Star Wars movie. And you guys both brought up, which I thought was the right thing, that the original Star Wars movie started with Vader's attack on Leia's ship. It started on action and immediately established him as a major threat and something that you're going to have to deal with. So when somebody says, who writes back, agreed, we have got to see the setup. We need the setup for the payoff. George Lucas did not need 7 hours of television to set up the attack on Vader on Leia.
Yes.
And when he did set up with Phantom Menace, it was not a commercial success.
It was not a commercial success, right? Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, it actually was, but it wasn't as good as it wasn't
as good. It doesn't resonate with people in the same way, right? Yeah, it's not, and then that right again, which we've been very critical of the prequels over here. So when we were saying we're huge fans, or at least I am, and I think we all are here, of setup and payoff and setup and payoff.
Yeah.
You don't have to start. It was not a critical success. That's what Sable says. It was not a critical success. It was not, right. It was a commercial success because people show up because they were invested in Star Wars because of the original trilogy.
Exactly.
And so when you have that kind of goodwill, people show up for the prequels. It was not a critical success. It is not remembered in the same way. Because you don't need that. So the original Star Wars came in, it hit hard, it established its villains, it established conflict, and that's what we were trying to argue needed to be done here, and it was not. You don't need to have people go through 7 hours of television in order to set up now that Thrawn's back. I guess he's about to attack some rebels or some New Republic or something. So I guess
with one Star Destroyer.
But and somebody else says yes. So are you advocating then for them to pull sequels and say somehow Thrawn returned? Of course not. Like if you had opened with Thrawn attacking, there would have been plenty of time elsewhere in this. Like I said, I'm not following all of the previous Star Wars, so I didn't know Thrawn was gone. So that's But listen, if that's an issue that you had to deal with, you totally could have done that in the sequences following the opening section of his attack. Like, how did he get back? Where is he here? I thought he was gone over there. Now all of a sudden he's here. What's going on?
Well, Thrawn disappears before A New Hope. So now we're after Return of the Jedi. There's plenty of room for him to come back. Secondly, he wasn't the
I thought you said that he and his people were watching the Battle of Endor.
What's that?
I thought you said something like he and his people were watching the Battle of Endor.
Oh, no. I might have to rewatch it again, but I thought all of Rebels takes place before A New Hope.
Okay. Well, I think it does.
It does. Yes, it does.
So he disappeared before A New Hope.
Yeah. Somebody was mentioning something that was written in books about Thrawn. My point is, like, Thrawn is not the canonical villain of all of Star Wars the way the Emperor was. And after the Emperor was killed on screen to conclude the original series, you can't just bring him back. This is totally different. You would be introducing a new villain who a lot of people don't know his backstory, so you have plenty of room to romp around there. Secondly, I would also add, and I'll keep this real brief, but the genre is Star Wars. Opening with conflict makes sense here. This is not the movie 7, where it's raining and we're slowly building up to something to solve a mystery. And there's some movies you do want a slow burn because that's the genre of the film. Star Wars, that's not the genre.
Yeah.
You need the conflict. It's Star Wars, not Star War one day. It's not like Star build up to war.
Yeah.
Star War will come one day. Sorry.
We don't need another Phantom Menace to try to kickstart the fandom.
Yeah. And I think that the slow burn works for so long before you start saying, well, where are my answers? If you continue to keep getting questions over and over again, when do you get your answers for anything? You need whatever it is that you're watching or looking at to finally give you some answers at some point. The best way that I'm looking at how I like to see it, or how I've seen it done in the past, is an episode sets up a question and you get the answer the next episode, or at least the next 2 episodes you get the answer. And maybe there's one big question that you don't get to answer until the very end. But like I said before, I've got 38 questions that weren't answered in the whole series. And it's
That's a lot.
That's a lot of questions. And
do you want to read that list at some point?
It feels like we should. Do you want to put that out?
It's a long list. Oh no!
This could be a TikTok viral sensation.
I don't know. It's long.
Well, give us at least an idea. I think that would be a good way to conclude as we go here. At least, what are we? Because you gave us one. Yeah, what is it that you have?
Okay, so I'll read them, and then you guys tell me when I've gone too far. Okay, one. What are in the pods or the cargo? Why didn't Thrawn have all of the cargo loaded before the arrival of Esbeth? How did Esbeth know how to build the Eye of Sion? What is Balin scroll after? Why didn't Balin tell Shin Hati that the trip to the new galaxy was a one-way trip? Why are the names of Luke, Leia, Ben, Chewie on Balin's gauntlet? Why hasn't Anakin's Force Ghost reached out to Ahsoka earlier? Or why is it that she can't communicate with him? Was that really Anakin in episode 5? Not what we think, but what is it really? Like, we can make all of these assumptions, but what is it really? Why did Balin get upset when Ahsoka threw Shin Hati into a rock in episode 4? Why didn't Ezra separate himself from the Na'vi so they can be safe? How did Sabine and Ahsoka find Ezra so easily? What is in the history of the galaxy 1, 2, and 3? And why does it matter? Why did Sabine or Ezra suspect that Thrawn had Sabine followed? Who or what was Merrick? Why?
Yeah, we didn't even get that, did we?
We didn't get the answer. Why can't the witches sense Ezra if they could sense Ahsoka on her way? They couldn't. They shouldn't be surprised by Sabine either. And why are the Zepho symbols on the temple walls of the Night Sisters, which is speaking of Kujet? What deal does the Night Sisters mothers have with Thrawn? Mm-hmm. Why doesn't anyone else hear what's calling Balin? Why did the night troopers not listen to Shin Hati when she told them to kill Ezra and Sabine? Why did Elsbeth have an inquisitorial database access? Why didn't Thrawn know that Anakin trained Ahsoka when he is very thorough about learning what his environment and job entails? He would know everything about everyone who he worked with, right? Who do the night troopers? Why do the night troopers wear red cloth? Why didn't Hera just? Why didn't Hera get in trouble for bringing? Why didn't Hera not get in trouble for bringing her child into a dangerous mission? Why did the Purgles take Ahsoka to Peridia when it was their burial place? Wouldn't that be the last place that they go in that galaxy? And didn't Ahsoka give? Why didn't Ahsoka give Anakin's recordings to Luke? That's his father. And how
man.
how did Hu Yang survive Order 66? I'm not sure. I think they may have kind of answered that a little bit, but it's still a question. Why did Elsbeth let Ezra and Sabine pass her? Why did Sabine get so much power suddenly? All of a sudden, she can like.
Really...
She believed in herself all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Awakened.
And what does the Mortis gods have to do with this story? Because we see their statues in one of the last shots. Why did Leia send C-3PO to speak for her when she could have simply used a hologram? Why was Ezra so weak with the Force? I mean, I thought he didn't really have that much power. What events happened to Ezra during the 10 years he was on the planet? Peridia. Why did Elsbeth die from her wounds and why didn't the Night Sisters try to bring her back? Why does Thrawn want to go back to the main galaxy when he can rule this new galaxy? I was actually expecting him to have way more power where in this new galaxy. I was like, this is Thrawn.
Over the turtle people.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
He could be ruling.
He didn't even conquer their little camp.
But he should be able to fly to. No, I did think he should be able to fly to another planet because he's got a Star Destroyer. He's not like marooned on that planet. He might be trapped on that galaxy, but he's not trapped at that planet.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and I have another question. I said, how many planets are in that galaxy? Are there any other like cultural worlds there? And why didn't Thrawn's technicians not detect that there was a ship that left his ship?
Oh, I know. We didn't even get into that. Yeah.
And why didn't the New Republic not detect that there was a a Star Destroyer in their galaxy? They should be able to detect that at least. So
you just made me think of another
question. Talk about why Ezra gets away from Thrawn in that ship, and flies toward the New Republic, and they don't blow him up. And for some reason, he still gets off the ship wearing a stormtrooper helmet.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so dumb. I mean, you know exactly what they were trying to go for. Like, that's just dumb. Like, you don't like leave the ship in your stormtrooper helmet, raising your hand. You just take off your helmet.
Yeah, at least.
Look, here I am. It was so dumb. That was so dumb.
Yeah, at least take off your helmet. Yeah. So that's
you made me wonder now too, where are the Imperial officers on the Are they resurrected in there?
You don't see them, right? I saw that. I only thought of that because I saw that with somebody else, but somebody else pointed out that you see Thrawn and you see the undead stormtroopers. You don't see any Imperial officers on board that. And I wonder if that's a deliberate thing or if it's just the way it was. I don't know.
Yeah. They didn't have the budget for it.
Like, you always see more of them than stormtroopers on the Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
But Retro Nerd Girl, you also just brought up a point that in that you're talking about giving recordings to Anakin or something like that. And I know that in Heir to the Empire, which now I want to read after all of this.
It's good.
It's because it is good. And it's Luke and Han and Leia and all of that. And several times during this entire series, when you're dealing with Ahsoka, I just said, isn't this supposed to be Luke?
Oh,
I just thought about that several times, especially when Thrawn is like, oh my God, this is the apprentice of Anakin. Yeah, well, if you think you're scared of the apprentice of Anakin, you just wait till you find out there's the son of Anakin out there. that's what that was. It's difficult because you've got apprentice of Anakin and you have son of Anakin, and that is diluting the story a bit. You know, the story
Yeah.
is who's the heir to whatever Anakin was, and all of this. Star Wars proper tells you his son, you know, and it's
Yeah.
telling you Luke Skywalker's story.
Well, and to be honest, Thrawn shouldn't really care about Anakin. He should know him only as Darth Vader. You know, Thrawn wasn't around in the old prequel era. He was a late original trilogy guy, so he's not so concerned about the apprentice and blah blah blah. He's a military guy, so he'd be like, you know, who's the guy that killed Vader? That's pretty important.
I think there is maybe some I think he does figure out at some point in his dealings that Anakin is and Darth Vader are the same person. And I'm not sure where, if my memory is skimping on that detail, but he does figure out that Anakin and Vader are the same people. But I thought he seemed to know a lot about the Jedi, and so that's why I was surprised that he didn't know that Ahsoka was Anakin's Padawan. So it was just kind of weird. He knew Balin, but maybe it was through battles that he knew of him. But it just seemed a little strange to me. He didn't know that about Ahsoka.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think with all the bad will within the fandom, I think with all the misfires on the shows, I think the struggles of the sequel trilogy, the inability to sell merchandise, Ahsoka needed to be better than a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
Or even a 7. I think it may have held the line in a sense that, you know, like I'll watch next season, you know. And I just wanted to say this too. It's possible that if Kathleen Kennedy does leave Lucasfilm and there's a regime change between now and season 2, that we may see a very dramatically different tone in season 2. And shows do recover and can get better despite a rocky first season. It's happened. Picard season 3 ended up being phenomenal despite 2 terrible seasons. So I still have hope that the show could self-correct. I don't think it was as egregious as like the Book of Boba Fett or anything, but obviously we covered it at length. There was a lot of problems with the show too, but
yeah,
I hope it gets better.
If
I hope
Kathleen
so too.
Kennedy goes, go ahead, Retro.
Oh no, go, you go.
I was going to say, if Kathleen Kennedy goes, then they have to capitalize on that marketing. That's what they've got to bring. Everything you market, everything is that the new regime or whatever word you want to use, whatever. Star Wars is being refreshed and all that, and you have to capitalize on that marketing.
You know what I would do?
Would bring people back if it were marketed in that way.
You know what I would do? Real easy. I would try to bring Lucas on as a consultant, and
I would,
even if he does
bring,
nothing,
exactly. I would do
and
that
receive
too.
emails,
That.
announce
Lucas is
that.
coming back.
Yes. Yeah, that these are George Lucas sanctioned ideas. He's going to be advising the creative story group, the new story group.
That would be amazing.
People would be excited. You couldn't help but not wonder what's going to come.
So many people would then watch. If Kathleen Kennedy were gone, you marketed that and said George Lucas is back, even as like a major story consultant or whatever, even if he doesn't own it, whatever. You know what else? Market the hell out of that. You could bring people back.
I found out that one of Lucas's daughters, I want to say Katie Lucas, wrote a couple episodes of the Clone Wars. So she's a writer. Why not bring her on? Get some sense of a legacy. She's a female writer.
Interesting. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool? And she wrote, I think she wrote the Witches of Dathomir episodes.
Okay.
So though I don't know this, but they may have been her idea. Bring her on, man. Get a little bit of Lucas magic going,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I kind of feel bad, and now I do know that there are a lot of people who just love this. This was everything that they've ever wanted. That they're not so much worried about the story as much as they were worried about how things were going to look like the animated shows, and all of the nuggets of member berries. And I think that that's something that really meant something to them, and they felt like Star Wars heard them and understood them. So I think there's a big group that's just happy with all of this, and so by just that nature, seeing the fandom kind of split into different groups is just so surreal. I never thought that the fan. I thought everybody would love Star Wars completely, but it is becoming with every single new series, and there's a splitting of the fandom. Like Andor, was also like, some people liked it, some people just hated it because it wasn't Star Wars, and it just a Mandalorian seemed to have been immune for a while, and then it succumbed to the succumbed to it. And so I just hope work going forward that we get good stories. I mean, that's the only reason why I'm into it, is for the stories, and so this one didn't have a lot for me to hold on to, and as far as the story goes.
But I think you're also right. Like, why do people, even though we've been very critical of it over here, there are people who love it. And I was even trying to figure that out with like Kenobi, which I stopped watching. But I was still watching some scenes on YouTube and then reading the comments like beneath it, and trying to understand, like, people who just loved it.
Mhm.
And I wanted to understand why and what they were seeing in it, what it was fulfilling for them. Now, I think it is the case that when you are as big as Star Wars, if you have some segment who loves it, that can still be enough.
Yes,
Like,
it can be.
you may have failed, but you still may have had enough that really loved it because they want to see something, even if it's not a story, but a sequence of events like we've talked about. But oh my God, I really want to see, they don't think about it in this terms, but what they're saying is, I really want to see these particular events shown on screen, in
Mhm.
live action. And I really want to watch that. And if, when you're as big as Star Wars, that scene, I just really wanted to see that. And if they deliver that and it looks the way that it's supposed to look, that can be enough for a large group of people. And so there are a lot of, I do think it is important to try to study why, even if we don't like it personally
Mhm.
here,
Yeah.
why large chunks do like it if it is still
Yeah.
being successful.
Well, I'll
Yes.
say this, because I've thought about that a lot. I would say that there's what I would call like a low budget fan, meaning all they have to do is say they like it, post that they like it. When someone says they see something on social media that they're like, hey, this, like one of our TikToks that we're criticizing some part of the show for coming up short, they'll just be like, nope, you guys hate Star Wars, blah, 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 blah. That's very easy. That's very low investment, very easy to broadcast that opinion. They're not buying merchandise. They're not supporting the show in a way that's leading to the show becoming more than just a show that's forgotten on Disney Plus. You don't hear about Kenobi. No one talks about that. I don't see it on social media anymore. It's gone. But when it was out and it mattered, they're like, I liked it. So for very little investment, they were able to fight with everybody and make their point and do all this. But they haven't done. If the metrics showed that Kenobi, for example, and this is true of Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
If the metrics showed that there was more, that the people who said all this mattered, they would be selling merchandise to those people. They'd be doing more. They would announce a second season. They would do all of these things. They haven't done any of it. So
Yeah.
I think that you get a cross section of people that, for very low investment, get to declare that they're the morally upright ones because they didn't hate it, and then argue with everybody who has a criticism on it. So, who's the real center of Star Wars is my question. And I would say being critical has always been part of the Star Wars fandom. We were tough on the prequels for good reason. We've softened on it, but it's because we've seen more of the prequels through the Clone Wars. And we also realized there was a story there.
Yeah,
There
was
is no
something.
story for the sequel trilogy. So that will not age well like the prequels did.
Yeah. Now I'll be honest with everybody. I was one of the people who liked Kenobi.
So
And
I would like to talk about that later, not tonight. But I know that you do like Kenobi. So
I do like Kenobi, but I do realize that there was a lot of problems with it. Yeah, I'm not a defender of it. If you will.
I actually like the first episode of Kenobi. I can't, or Heath, you've seen me on Cameron's Patreon. Sometimes I feel like it's whiplash. I'll like something, and then the next week I'm like, I don't know. It's not that good now. Ahsoka was like that. So I really liked episode 1 of Kenobi. It seemed to be going somewhere. And then when they switched over to Leia, it lost me. And it lost me bad. But we don't have to get into all that now.
We'll go into Kenobi on our own. I want to say the inverse actually of what you were saying too, as far as fans go, Doug, because even if it's not a moral point that you're making or something, there are certainly fans of Star Wars, and I am perfectly willing to call them Star Wars fans and all of that, who watch, and then I know that after the sequel, movie 1 and movie 2, whatever they're called, I can't remember, whatever, that that come out of the movie and go, wow, if you didn't like that, I don't know what's wrong with you. You had lightsaber battles, you had starships fighting, you had all of that.
It's all superficial.
To us here, that's a superficial analysis. But on the other hand, that is a lot of people who just watch movies, and then who see that. And now you're right, they may not be buying a lot of merchandise. So I think the secondary sales and stuff like that, because then you have to ask that person, if that person came out of the movie and went, gee, that was incredible. Do they then go drop $3,000 to go to the Star Wars Starliner Star Cruiser thing?
So let me
Probably not.
What is the word fan short for?
Fanatic.
Fanatic. So you're a fanatic of the show. If you just like the show and are willing to say you like the show, are you fanatical? Are you really that into the show? Or are you just like, hey, it passed my basic test. I was entertained, and why would you criticize it? Why would you look deeper? You're always going to have someone who's like that. Retro, I don't think you're like that. So if you like Kenobi, I'm sure you have reasons, and I'm sure you can articulate why you liked it and everything else. But what I'm talking about is a fan who simply says, I liked it. Case closed, done deal. It's like, well, there's more to it than just that. And the people who support the Star Wars, who have supported Star Wars since 1977, who bought the bed sheets and all these things when they were you're a little bit more than someone who just said, yeah, Empire was good. What's the problem? Who cares? Why would you criticize it? Why would you question it? I don't think if you had that fan base back then that Star Wars would have gone on to become a global phenomenon.
I love that, Doug. That's your point, that fan is short for fanatic, because I've seen this in the comments section on both Star Wars, on YouTube and TikTok. People will write things like, no one hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans. So that sounds contradictory until you say, but fan is short for fanatic. And so you're right that no one would hate what we're being given like a fanatic about Star Wars.
Especially if you're changing the DNA.
That explains that. Yeah. That your biggest critics are going to be the people who are most fanatical about having loved it.
Absolutely right. And just saying you like it, I would argue, falls short of the true definition of fan. I don't want to say that you're not a fan and you're not part of this. You're absolutely part. Anyone who likes it, even a casual viewer, you're absolutely part of it. All I'm saying is that to create a global phenomenon, you need fanatics about the show. People who will study it and break it down and think about it and internalize it and try to apply it to their own writing, who will buy the merchandise because they just want to see a stormtrooper in their office, or a Darth Vader helmet, or a Luke Skywalker rebel helmet. I have all of those up there. I have the Ahsoka clone trooper helmet up there. So here, I don't know if I could get it to see him up there, Darth Vader, the Luke helmet and everything. So
that's cool.
You know what I'm saying? You have to be more than someone who just gave it a thumbs up walking out of the theater, or saying, yeah, it was good. Leave us, don't ever criticize it. There's a little bit more to it to create a global phenomenon. Star Trek had them. Star Wars had them. Aliens, these big franchises have fanatical fans who go out and buy the merchandise. Who they're not just liking it.
Mhm.
That's a low bar anyway.
Well,
And social
so-
media amplifies that low bar.
Social media, okay, but we can wrap up here soon, but that's an excellent point too. When you buy something, if you're thinking about fans as fanatics, when you buy something like a franchise like Star Wars, this is the weird part that I see a lot now. Like if you buy Star Wars or you're doing more Star Trek, who should be there on the first day, on opening night, or the first time, or watching it the very, going to be staying up till midnight to watch it because it's going to drop at midnight. It should be your fanatics. I mean,
The fanatics.
the reason you're buying that franchise, the reason it has value anyway, is because it has a built-in group of fanatics who, when you say you're doing this, are going to be there. So your first job should be to satisfy the fanatics, because as soon as you watch it and they love it, they're going to go, oh my God, that was fantastic. And then they're going to bring a friend. Like, you've got to see this. But if you don't satisfy there seems to be in many different franchises, I'd say we're not going to satisfy the fanatics. We're going to do something different than the fanatics want. And that's so weird to me, because it just flies in the face of just basic marketing and business. I bought this because there are fanatics who love it. I bought it because those people are going to buy a ticket. And then if they love it, they're going to leave the theater and bring a friend. If they don't like it, we're not going anywhere.
So they've studied what creates phenomenon. And what they say is you have the fanatic, and then you have what are called first followers. And they were showing this like it was at a concert, right? And there was one guy who was out there. He was doing this weird free hippie dance, and he was just out there by himself forever, right? Everyone was like, that guy's a nut. Yeah, but look at him. He's crazy. This thing went on for like 20 minutes. This guy was doing this weird dance. One other person ran over and started doing it with him. And then you had thousands of people running in and doing it. It became a thing at this concert, this bizarre, like weirdo hippie mosh pit. And but they were analyzing it. They're like, you needed the fanatic, but you also needed the first follower. The person was like, this guy's the crazy one. You're my kind of crazy. And then everyone else who watched, the so-called normies, they got it. They understood, this is crazy. Let's do it. They rush in, and now you've got this event, the sociological bizarreness that happens. So in Star Wars, you have that. Like on opening night, you get the people that dress up as Jedis and Darth Maul and all this. I never did that, but I appreciated it because it's part of the spectacle now of going on an opening night. So you get different types of people feeding into this, and I think, Heath, you're right. When you attack the fan, you attack this guy, and then that guy's like, this is my kind of crazy. You attack him too. You're not going to get that mad rush into your product. You're not going to get that phenomenon that created something like Star Wars. And they've just mastered the art of fostering arguments, it seems, amongst people who say they like Star Wars at various different levels.
So I think there must be a lot more money available to lose, because I always say that the like endless, now we're talking commentary here, but there's a lot more endless commentary than what we do. But the endless commentary really is, at the end of the day, money talks. If people go and buy the tickets, they buy the Disney Plus, they buy the merchandise, whatever it is, if they're doing that, then it will continue. If they're not, then it won't. But there's probably more money to lose than you generally expect. You can lose a lot more money than you might expect. But in the end, that's what's going to sustain it, sink it, or float it or sink it. In the end, that's what's going to float it or sink it. And so I just have to say that if I owned one, I'd be like, first of all, I've got to put what the fans want on screen.
Yeah.
But there's also there is, and this is a slightly different topic that we actually have covered on other geekdoms, the general geekdom show, but we were talking about managing expectations. Like what happens if you are all of a sudden going to be doing Lord of the Rings or Star Wars? I think you have to play to those fanatics, but then also they're the people who are going to be watching you for months or years in advance of your release. So you have time to manage their expectations. You have to first convince them that their franchise is in good hands. That's the first thing. I understand you, but then if you need to change things, then once you've convinced them that they are in good hands, then you can start managing expectations about changes that may have to be made for other reasons. For instance, if you're doing the Lord of the Rings, if you also have first of all, you've got to convince all the Lord of the Rings fans the Lord of the Rings is in good hands.
We're the good guys.
Number
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Yes.
Then you break the news to them. Tom Bombadil won't be in the movie. But that's what you do next. Like, okay, but they go ahead and let them know, okay, we don't have Tom Bombadil. So that way they know when they show up in 2 years that Tom Bombadil isn't in
Tom?
it. Yeah, because some people are going to be like, oh my God, I paid to see Tom Bombadil and there's no Tom Bombadil. You manage that expectation.
And then you leak that the Tom Bombadil trilogy is coming.
Like,
Yeah.
Tom Bombadil, we're gonna have to do that later. But then you manage that, and then you should be able to lead all the fanatics that when they do see the episode or the movie or whatever it is, they go bananas and then bring all their friends. That
See,
just
I think
seems
all
like
of that
marketing strategy that you
Yes, you have to do that, and also you must hire competent writers. You have to be able to execute a vision and tell a story that's going to be a good story, because Lucas did not have the support of the establishment when he made Star Wars: A New Hope.
Oh, yeah.
He did it on his own. He financed it on his own. He had very little support. He had to invent companies and invent technology to see his vision out. Like, you need people that care like that involved, and you need storytellers. So, the right business plan, the right storytellers, and the right spirit. Who are we telling the story for? I just think they got it exactly wrong when they went out there to do all this.
James says that movie makers used to be able to get 4 or 5 ticket sales out of me. Now they can't even get one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's really, and I feel like with Star Wars now, it's as a Star Wars fan, you have to, not everything's going to be for you, and I think this show, it wasn't for everybody. So it wasn't the show like how Star Wars, when you first saw it, that felt like it was for everybody. Right, in the 70s,
Oh, yeah.
it felt like it was for anybody of any age, but it feels like this particular show is definitely catering to a certain group of people, and they all have seen Rebels and Clone Wars, and they grew up with it. And there's an emotional tie to these characters in a way that I can't, because when I saw it, I was an adult. And definitely in a way that probably Heath can't identify with, because you've not seen those things. So it's like these guys have this really incredible attachment to what these characters are way before the show even started. So seeing them in live action is like another experience for them. This is just making it. This is everything they've ever wanted. And for us, we're sort of like, okay, well, we see a lot of stuff here. We just can't make out what any of it means. And we've got to go look back. And I'm like, even knowing all the stuff that I know about all of the backstory doesn't help the jagged pill of like knowing a lot of these characters don't feel fleshed out, or I'm not comfortable with them. I don't feel like I know Hera. I don't feel like I know. I barely know Sabine. She did something good once, and it's like, okay, that's getting better. Ahsoka is cold. I don't feel as if I can sit down and have a conversation with Ahsoka.
Well, and what's so weird too is Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, she's a woman of action.
Yeah.
And this Ahsoka is not. She's very
old. Yeah.
Cold. Yeah. Well, cold.
Everybody folds their hands. Everybody folds their hands and says nothing. Ahsoka is very, everyone always.
But she's that's what she does.
Like,
she's very pensive, pensive and distant. She doesn't say a lot. Like, so I don't know. Like, I just don't think they knew it. I think he was so excited that Filoni was so excited he was doing this that he forgot to push her, give her like serious conflict there.
Yeah.
The retro, what you were saying, Robert says, I agree with retro, but I'm in the same boat as Heath as I didn't watch the Clone Wars. Because on that point, I think this is the same point that's bringing up, I was seeing some comments, I forget whether it was on Instagram or TikTok or whether it was YouTube or whatever, but somebody said, and this is what I was trying to understand, like the people who love it, why? And this person in their comments said, he said, I'm lucky that I grew up. This is a slight paraphrase, but it was basically, I'm lucky that I grew up with the Clone Wars. And so I love this. But had I been an adult when I watched it, I probably wouldn't like it either. So
Interesting.
That person was realizing that, like, I grew up with that. So you realize that, okay, so there's a segment who likes this. Why do they like this? Because they grew up with this. This is what they were watching as kids. And now it's manifesting as live action. And I completely get that allure. I completely get that.
Yeah, I mean, I've compared this to Masters of the Universe. Like for me, when I was a kid, I loved Masters of the Universe, and when the movie came out, the movie's not great, but I love that movie. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, and it's like that is like the best way for me to try to verbalize or try to explain what these people are feeling. They love this because it was something that they grew up with at this like developmental time of their lives where they were able to suck that in and really like love these cartoons. I saw them. They weren't that great to me. I had a problem with the cartoon style, and I was like, okay, I'll watch, a couple of episodes. It didn't stick, and it's kind of wild to know that many years later they would matter. It's like taking a test and failing.
Yeah.
We're going to have to talk about Master of the Universe then in that movie one time, retro.
Oh, yeah.
On that.
I love
retro,
that movie.
I'm with you. There are movies that are not critical successes that are flawed that I just, for whatever reason, I just freaking love them, and I'll watch them and I'll rewatch them, and I know that they're goofy movies, but it doesn't matter. So there are movies that just fly through all expectations sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I like to embrace, the silliness of some movies, because sometimes it's nice to just laugh or just enjoy something that's wrong. and so, but like that scene where Ahsoka's in outer space and she's floating, I loved it for that fact that it was like, this is super silly.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes they're so goofy that it works.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that that you have on your mind, or should we wrap up?
I checked off almost everything on my list.
I got everything on my list. Is there anything else on your list?
I think I'm all done. I read all 38 of my questions.
That's awesome.
All right.
Those are good questions too.
They are. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Here's Retro Nerd Girl's channel. I am putting a link in the chat right now. So, Retro, wrap it up. Let everybody know what you do real quick. Retro, here's your channel.
Oh, yes. I do make reviews of retro movies on my channel. I also have live streams Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. On Saturdays, I like to do a watch party. So join me if you can.
All right.
Awesome.
And then Doug, right over here on Faraway Bird.
My Faraway Bird, your experience may differ. But I mean, I'm the author of the book. I strongly endorse it. And if anyone here ends up reading it, feel free to reach out or let me know what you think, because I would love to hear.
We're going to cover, I got it right over here, right here. So I got it here. It has come in. It came in yesterday. So we're going to cover Faraway Bird on Table Talk. We don't have a date yet, but in the coming weeks or months or whatever, we're going to talk about it. So if you want to get it and read it in the coming up, we're going to be reading it and then covering it on the channel. So
awesome. And I'll just say, I used tropes from Star Wars to help me write this book, and you would never know because although the architecture is the same, the skin on top is, Byzantine Empire. So the beauty of archetypes is they can be versatile like that. So anyway, just interesting that something like that came from love of Star Wars,
Nice.
And then my book, Goodnight Sword, which is a takeoff of Goodnight Moon. So if you have kids in your life, whether your kids or friends of kids, or you got nieces or nephews or friends of kids of your friends, rather, or nieces or nephews who are about that age, Goodnight Sword is the book. You can get it free. Come over to that link. You can download the ebook as a PDF free. I'm going to bring hard copies back to Indiegogo on October 17th. And then if you also enter there, I'm going to do a drawing on the 17th for a free hard copy book. So not only will we get the PDF, but you'll know when the hard copies go live, and you might even get one free. So
Awesome.
That's where you go right there. And also, please join us. Look up Table Talk Conversations on Instagram. We're on Instagram now, and we are also on TikTok. So if you're on either one of those, TikTok and Instagram, look up Table Talk. We are there.
That
All
blows my mind.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody who's watching live.
Yes,
We have
well,
loved it. This has been a
thank
great
you.
conversation. And thank you to everybody who's going to come in here and watch on replay as well. That was fantastic. Oh, so have a wonderful day or evening, and I'll see you in the morning. Everybody.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.